Good evening. You see it in there, don't
Huh?
you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah. You have the settings set to mute unless. Should be able to go down to settings to. Mute everything.
Hi Nancy, can you hear us online?
Okay.
Great.
Should be inside this game.
Hey Ryan.
Evening. Right.
How we doing?
Good, when we record?
What's that?
All right, I call this meeting of the Transfer Station Board of the Town of Brookline to order. It is 6:31 on the 15th of July, 2026. We are meeting hybrid. Some of us are in room 103 of Town Hall, some of us are online. All votes will be taken by roll call as always. First item on the agenda is public comment for items not on the agenda. I see one hand. Sean Lynn Jones, go ahead, please, sir.
Oh, I knew one.
Gary, you should be able to unmute yourself, Sean. No, can someone unmute Sean?
Yep, just did it.
Okay, try it out, Sean.
I hit on.
Joys of hybrid meetings, folks.
Here we go.
I think I'm unmuted
All
now.
right, you're unmuted, but we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much. Sean Lynn Jones, president of the Brookline Green Space Alliance and also a town meeting member in Precinct 1. You know, I signed up for this meeting because you have so much good stuff on your agenda. And I'm glad to see that the crosswalks in Precinct 1 are part of the consent agenda. And particularly glad in reviewing the CIP that there is a component for the Netherlands Road pedestrian crossing and improving the safety of that crossing, which is where people walking through the Emerald Necklace or riding through the Emerald Necklace cross the Netherlands Road to get from one part of the Emerald Necklace to the other by the water and sewer building. But then I realized, apart from saying, you know, those are great and I welcome them, I had a question that you might be able to help me with. In my neighborhood on Monmouth Court and Monmouth Street, the 2-hour parking signs disappeared 2 or maybe 3 or 4 months ago now, and neighbors have been asking me what happened to them and when they will come back. I have to say, in all honesty, a lot of people parked on these streets for more than 2 hours, even before the 2-hour parking signs disappeared. But now it seems like everyone parks for more than 2 hours because they don't see that there's any limit to how long they can park. And even the entering Brookline, no overnight parking, 2-hour parking sign is very well hidden behind a tree. And I think anyone could argue that it's impossible to see. So that's my question. I'm not sure this is a matter of policy or just sign manufacture, but my neighbors have been wondering if the 2-hour parking signs will come back. They're only gone on Monmouth Street between Carlton and St. Amory's. They're gone on all of Monmouth Court. They seem to be still in place on Monmouth Street between Carlton and Hawes. So that's my question more than a comment, but I really appreciate the other items that are on the agenda. They're great projects.
Thank you, Sean. Dan, do we have an answer for Sean?
Someone called that in, and we put that in as a work order, but we can put that in again, just to, those should be up.
So Sean, they should be coming up soon, a work order's in place to replace them all.
Okay, I'll keep looking for them and look forward to seeing them again, and so will my neighbors. Thank you.
Enforcement?
What's the question?
Traffic control enforcement, as far as you all fine? Yeah.
They enforce it, yeah.
Do they?
Yeah, they enforce it, yeah.
Okay. No, I just, sometimes you figure street or neighborhood goes unnoticed, that's all.
Yeah, they can do targeted enforcement if it's a problem, but generally they can't enforce that, yeah.
Okay,
And Brian, before we forget, can we call the roll and then?
yeah, thank you very much. I wanted to get us going. Can you please call the roll, Dylan?
Brian,
I am here, Brian Kane, yes.
Jonathan,
Present.
Wendy,
Yeah, here.
Nancy. Yes, she's on the.
Getting on you.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Alright,
Okay,
Yes,
Nancy,
sorry about that, Nancy.
we're glad you're here.
Len is
Glenn is on vacation.
on vacation and Richard.
Okay, so I asked for item 2 to be added and I almost skipped over it. So a young woman was murdered, killed by a car while riding her bike in this region last week. I didn't know Louisa Gagg. I know a lot of people who did. And everyone who says they knew her has nothing but positive things to say. So while she was not a Brookline resident, she certainly is someone that matters. All lives matter. And I want to just have a quick moment of silence for her and for all victims of deaths on roads across the greater Boston region. So please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll move on. We did public comment. Is there any additional public comment for items not on the agenda? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment period and we will move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of 3 items. Approval of 12 June 2026 meeting minutes, the meeting that was the in-person retreat, the 12/24/26 meeting minutes, and request for approval for new crosswalk markings as part of bonded wearing course paving at all crosswalks in the intersection of Euston Street and Carlton Street. And then a bunch of other streets, Ivy Street and Carlton, eastbound Churchill Street approaching the Churchill Street and Carlton Street intersection, westbound Colchester Street approach to the Colchester Street and Kent Street intersection, the crossing of Beach Road at Beach Road, and the Kent Street intersection, the crossing of Chatham Street at the Chatham Street and Kent Street intersection, the westbound James Street approach to the James Street and Pleasant Street intersection, and all crossings at the Brown Street and Pleasant Street intersection. Would any member like a item removed from the consent agenda and discussed individually? Well, Nancy.
yes, I would like to ask some questions about the crosswalks at Carlton and Ivy and Carlton and Euston.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, so my first question is this just crosswalks or is there signage that goes along with each crosswalk?
What kind of signage would you request, Nancy?
I'm not requesting, I don't want them, but there is currently at, I think, both Ivy and Euston, there are going north on Carlton. As you approach the crosswalks, there's one of those huge yellow signs with a pedestrian and an arrow. So I'm not requesting them. I'm hoping that it's just crosswalks and not additional signage.
Yeah, it's just crosswalks.
Okay.
And the curb ramps are being created shortly, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think it's necessary to have double crosswalks going across Carlton at both Ivy and Euston. Currently, there is one crosswalk at each. All right, so I have no problem with the crosswalks that go across Ivy or Euston. Those are fine. But I don't think you need more than one crosswalk at the intersection of Carlton and Ivy and at the intersection of Euston and Carlton. There's not a lot of pedestrian crossing. There's very little pedestrian crossing on Carlton, particularly up at that end. And I think one crosswalk is entirely sufficient, which is what we have now. I would like to leave it at that.
So, okay, Nancy, I hear what you're saying. We almost never get requests to not have more crosswalks, so I'm just a little puzzled as to sort of. Is there a rationale? Is it just because it's the way it is now? Is there?
Well,
sidewalks?
I don't know what the rationale is for adding them. I walked around Brookline today and I noticed that there are many intersections where going across the major road, there are not double crosswalks. There's one crosswalk at the intersection that crosses the major road, not two.
Okay. Deanne or DPW folks, what do our policies say? What does the NUTCD say about crosswalks, doubling, singling, et cetera? If anything.
I mean, the argument, well, our crosswalk policy, and the conversations I've had with members of the pedestrian advisory committee and the disability commission, they are both supportive of painting crosswalks for locations that previously weren't there. It increases the visibility of the crosswalk to drivers to let them know that they should expect pedestrians, no matter how few they are, to be crossing at that location. And we're currently upgrading the wheelchair ramps as part of the paving effort in order to paint these crosswalks, and better establish these crossings. So, I think that we should be painting these crosswalks.
Okay, so Nancy, I guess what we can do is if you'd like to make an amendment or a motion that excludes the double crosswalk, we can have you do that and then we can talk about it, see if there's support for it and then try to move forward.
Okay, I make that amendment.
Okay, so Nancy would like to make, I think you want to, so we haven't made the motion yet, so I'm gonna assume you want to make the motion as I kind of read it out, but without the double crosswalk at Carlton. Is that accurate?
Without the double crosswalk at Ivy and Carlton and Euston and Carlton. And- Yeah, I mean, I suppose the reason to oppose them is it's a combination of aesthetic, but it's also, you know, it to the extent there are crossings, and there aren't very many crossings, but anything that slows down the movement, we get tremendous, and this is going to come up later in the meeting, tremendous backups on Carlton. And, you know, anytime, like this is going to be worse with stop signs. But I think it's better to have pedestrians crossing at one spot rather than at two spots. Just anything that keeps the traffic from backing up, because it does back up into Beacon Street.
Okay,
At peak times. At non-peak times, it's not an issue, but in the morning rush hour and in the evening rush hour, the northbound traffic on Carlton backs up all the way often to Beacon Street.
And if I could clarify, maybe,
Yeah.
Nancy, in your statement, you said that the backup of traffic from the stop signs, there are no stop signs.
No, I'm saying it will be worse. I mean, you know, this will be a big issue when we get, for me, when we get to the item that wants to put four-way stop signs at Ivy and Carlton. But I'm saying even with respect to pedestrian crossings, I think it's better to have one spot at each intersection, not two at each intersection. They're a block apart.
yep,
They're a relatively short block apart. So basically what you're doing is you're creating 4 crossing points across Carlton in the space of what amounts to a single block.
Okay, so Nancy, I got it. I got what you're saying. I think everyone is clear. So I'm gonna take it that you have made that motion to do all of the crosswalks except for the double crosswalks at Ivy and Houston intersection with Carlton. We can do a discussion unless anybody would like to second that motion. If the motion is seconded, we'll have a vote, and if that passes, that is what will have passed by the board.
I also have a question. Was this notice to abutters? Is this notice to abutters? Because I don't think we got a notice.
The addition of crosswalks,
Yeah,
we don't notice for the paving of crosswalks. That's never been done before.
Did we notice for the bonded land force work?
Yeah, we noticed for the bonded wearing, the paving work has been noticed, everyone who's touching the upcoming roads was noticed.
yeah, we got a construction notice, if that's what you mean.
Yeah.
For the paving.
Okay, so
I can ask a question.
of
later.
course, please.
The pedestrian curb ramps that are on the corners there are pedestrian curb ramps on all four corners.
And they're getting
Currently-
upgraded next week.
Whether or not they are currently ADA compliant, there are pedestrian curb ramps on all four corners.
Sure.
They are currently Apex style,
Correct.
so anyone who was going up to one would have some sort of belief that they could cross the street in either direction,
Correct.
regardless of whether there's a crosswalk there.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional comments or questions on this item? Is there a second to Nancy's motion? Okay, seeing none, Nancy, your motion dies for lack of a second. Would anyone like to make another motion with respect to this item?
So I think we have to make a motion to approve.
So you're making a motion to approve all of the crosswalks as requested by staff, just to be
Yes.
clear? Okay, is there a second?
Second,
Someone call the roll, please.
Brian,
I'm a yes.
Jonathan,
yes,
Wendy?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yeah,
Richard?
Yeah, yes.
All right, and then I want to come back and do the other two items on the consent agenda, which were the meeting minutes of the last two meetings. Is there a motion to that effect, as I have the wrong agenda pulled up on the screen? It'd be really helpful.
I'll second.
Okay, so made by Wendy, seconded by Richard. Someone call the roll again, please.
Brian,
Yes.
Jonathan,
yes,
Wendy?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
And Nancy?
yes.
Thank you very much. We will move on to item 5 as soon as I can open the stupid. What is item 5? Anybody know what item
Member
5 is?
update.
Member update. Anybody have a member update?
We discuss with engineering, Hayes and Driscoll safety improvements. We're gonna categorize, into 3 buckets. As far as things that we can do now that fall within, scope of what, engineering highway can tackle now as far as signage and other areas. And then the second bucket would be, transportation board approval items. And then there's a long-term, CIP bucket. For example, the parking lot at the Hayes School needs to possibly expanding, in much more investment in order to make that happen. And then we were gonna kind of determine in that bucket as far as whether it falls into the school budget or highway budget as far as, evaluation. That's pretty much it. Okay. Thank you.
Any additional updates? Nancy, go ahead, please.
Yes, from the Disability Commission, Brian, and Dan, I had sent a comment in from Jim Lee that I don't think it was included in the public comment.
Okay, well, I want to check,
All right, well, then I want to at least report. I don't want to read his email, but he did want the Transportation Board to know that, or to remind them that they are very concerned about the condition of accessible parking spaces in Brookline, and that they had done a survey and submitted a report to the Transportation Board indicating that a large number of accessible parking spots are not usable because of various obstructions. And they would like to know when when they can expect that these issues will be addressed.
Yeah, I see the message you sent here, Nancy. I was out and about today, and I didn't get a chance to look at it yet, so.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Other example?
I don't think the report is attached. Nancy, can you send us that report?
I don't have it. I mean, I may have gotten a copy of it some time ago.
Okay.
I mean, I can certainly ask Jim to resend it, but I know he did send it to the Transportation Board some time ago.
Yeah,
On a very high level, it identifies like mailboxes, trash cans, non-compliant ramps, things that should be moved or upgraded near certain accessible parking spaces to make them.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's more on-street accessible spaces?
I
or-
believe, yeah, it's on-street accessible parking spaces. It's very possible that they did some in town-owned lots as well. But I know that a decent number of the spaces were inventoried like along Beacon Street, in the Coolidge Corner area, so,
Yep.
we do have the report.
We can definitely take a look at it, come up with,
Yes, if somebody could take a look at it and get back to Jim.
sure.
So so you mentioned, post boxes, so it's things on the sidewalk, a lot of them?
Yeah, it's
Like,
obstructions.
car door,
It's a variety of obstructions, it's not normally about like the sizing of this, the sizing of the space, it's
Like being able to
things
get out of
getting, to get from the space to where people wanna go, there are obstructions. And some are much more complicated than others, and so, we just need to look at what we can accomplish versus, maybe having to coordinate with USPS or other, or mailboxes, et cetera.
Okay. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Any other member updates? All right, we will move on to the DPW Director's update.
All right, I'll just give you a few items tonight. We've got some good news today. Hammond Street, we got a bid opening. And Jay Marchese and Son, is the apparent low bidder. So looking forward to getting that project moving. So that price was, the low price was 3.5 million, which is great, where the cost estimate was. As you may recall, we combined the traffic signal with the road diet, we upgraded to mill and overlay, and we've got a fair amount of granite curb count going as well. So excited about that, excited to get going. Work this fall will be primarily related to the signal and the granite curbing, and then next season, spring, the paving will come.
So ideally, like next June, we're thinking about it, we'll resurface that road.
Yeah, right, most of it done, so the lead time on some of the signal stuff, we'll see, but that.
Okay.
It's through till the spring next year.
That'll be great.
That's the first one, is Harvard Street, the milling, and you've probably seen the signs, the RFPs are up. So, Sunday night, that will resume phase 2, south side of Beacon, so we're excited to get the second phase done. We think it's actually a little easier for detours because, there's less cross streets and, also we went through phase 1, so there's a better understanding of how to do it. The team's ready to go. We had a really good pre-construction meeting last week, and excited to see that happen, get it done in August before things pick up again on the roads. So that's the second. The other body wearing course project, that the milling will start on that Monday, on the 20th. We're scurrying a little bit to get the sidewalk ramps done. Don't necessarily have to do them all, but really was goal of ours. Get all the ramps done, as many as you can. So we're doing that now. We had Charles, one of our contractors, brought in the second crew, and we had another company doing on our sidewalk contracts this Friday. So excited to get all that work done. On that job, let's see, Washington Street, I guess there's some utility meeting, there's a response to comment meeting, and then we're looking to have a design public hearing in September. Once those two pieces are done, then we'll have the design public hearing scheduled. It takes a long time on those, and, there's just a lot of steps you gotta get through. And then, the last one we'll have is that we did this Safe Streets for All planning grant, we've been awarded, but it took some time to get to the first meeting, which we have, so that's moving forward, and looking forward to getting that going. It's got a longer time frame. It's not within a fiscal year. So, yeah, have some time, we'll, get that moving as soon as we can. I'm excited about it.
Is that attached with the schools?
No, it's Safe Streets for All. It's a federal, it's actually federal, direct to the municipality. But it's, it's things that we chose to, so, we're looking forward to get that going. And that's all, I guess those are the highlights. If you have any questions, happy to answer.
A quick one, just on, if I may. The Marion Street, we were talking about adding a rectangular flashing beacon. You thought you could move something over?
Yeah, and we got a quote, it'll be in by the end of August.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, three things. You get an update on the blue light station installation?
Yep, so we, there are two locations that we've diverted back to the Shared Mobility Advisory Committee, so the Park at Washington Street location. And the Dean Road at Beacon location are both being revisited. We're gonna coordinate with them on a meeting that will be held sometime in the next 4 weeks. We need to bring it back to the Transportation Board for the September meeting to take a vote. But the Shared Mobility Advisory Committee will hold a public meeting where we'll notice all the butters. So that way we can meet the end of the year deadline for the construction and installation of the station.
All the other ones are fine.
As far as you know, I mean,
Yes.
we've constructed almost 8 or 9 locations this year, so Dylan can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're actually on pace to install 10 new stations this year instead of the original 6. Which is great news, and we're working to construct some that still won't arrive until this winter. So
When do the stations actually go into place?
So July, the end of this month, we have 4, 5, so 5 will be going in at the end of this month.
And we have 3 replacement already deployed.
Yeah, so we replaced the oldest stations in Coolidge Corner, Pearl Street, and one other location. But yeah, 5 new stations at the end of this month, and then this fall, September, we should see an additional 4 or so.
Thank you.
I have a question. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Two more quickies here. I noticed charging stations in Webster Lot were uncovered again. Is that?
Webster, yeah, yeah, that's been an interesting one, huh? So, there's a debate.
That's an understatement.
There's a current discussion around the regulations of an ADA EV only spot. And whether or not, an ADA EV only spot should have an ADA sign. And so, I'm meeting with DEP, next week to talk about whether or not, the contract should be extended because of this signage issue. So the stations must be in service through the end of this year, but it's a moving end date to the contract because we can't agree on how long the stations were offline for. So for the time being, they will be online.
Okay. That's fun. And then the flex posts on Tappan Street, there's a lot of them missing now. Are they planning on getting replaced? Or are the likelihood of them getting hit again, keeping them from getting installed again?
Oh, by the high school.
By the high school.
Oh, yeah, we can work with the highway division on that. This is the first I've heard of it, so
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, there's like,
Who's that in front?
yeah, Tappan at
In front of the gym.
by the gym and then by the small race crossing. There's some missing.
Both the contraflow lane and.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the big bollards looks like it's tilted a little bit, so I assume that they were hit.
Yeah.
That's why they're gone.
Okay, thank you.
I just had a question about the Park Street, issue that came up with with a bike, with a blue bike. So was that a move of the, is that where we originally approved that location?
So you guys, you did approve it there.
Okay,
We acknowledge that, as part of the mailing process for that particular location, the town's, GIS system for mailing, only mailed one notice per building in application versus capturing all the apartment numbers. So, although all town meeting members were alerted about it, this particular location did have an issue with mailing. So we acknowledge that, and you did approve this location. We did have a number of constituents reach out, but of course, when construction starts. And subsequently have halted construction to reevaluate possibility of moving on to maybe Harbor Ave around the corner.
I thought that one was suspiciously amicable.
It was still fun, but
I was confused because it seemed like people were saying it was like a bait and switch, so I was a little.
the two options that were proposed per location, the option one that we were presenting to the board was on Briggs Road. And so the alternate to Briggs Road was Park Washington, and I did clarify with the residents that there was no ill intent around naming it Briggs Road South. It just was the second option. So how do you name something on two different streets? So.
Okay, any other questions for DPW? No? Next. We will move on to our next item, which is the draft CIP.
Would you like to be up there or, okay, here,
You're fine there.
okay, I'm just grabbing here.
You're down, wherever you're
All
comfortable.
right. All right, very happy to be at this point and to be able to come and present the draft capital improvement plan. Specifically, looking for the key vote recommendations and priorities, go through it tonight. Take a look, the other thing I will say is this, I did update this, engineer always will take the time after he sends out the draft to make it through, so we'll send this out tomorrow morning or later tonight to everybody. Let's see, the other thing I think it's really good is that this will allow you folks to better understand the internal workings of what we do and what we're up against and the things that we think about when we go through all these projects. And there's a ton of work, there's a lot of moving parts, and I think, I'm just happy to be able to share all this so people can hear what we do and how we come to the decisions we do and some of the problems we need to take care of. All right, so next slide. Okay, and this will start with the maintenance project schedule. This is where we started with the PMPP or the ramp. And what I've changed this to maintenance and multimodal coordination. So we have two different paths, but we can make it work together if we're smart about it. And that's what I really think that hopefully you'll take away from tonight's review of this. All right, there's the map. It's not really useful to see at the scale. Anyway, that's the 26 to 31 data management map. And then these are the roads that you've gone through. I know you've got them in front of you. And they're in the presentation, but as you know, we have Hammond Street is coming this fall and next spring. Harvey's ongoing. And then we've got the bonded wearing course, like, as you can see, those 26, a little tough to do. And then, let me see next. And then what we've got for 27 is Brookline Ave, Chestnut Ave, which we can get to a resolution or a solution on that, or agreement. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is High Street, we're doing a short section from Island up and over the hill. And we're looking to do an RFP as part of that. But that's really supplementing the utility grid, did the lower section. And we've been wanting to do this piece. So we're trying to get that in with we are putting it out as a High Street, and then we'll do some maintenance, mill and overlays on some quieter streets. Okay. And then those are the out years, 29 and 30, so, okay. And then this is just what we're looking to do is set this up. We're a little behind for this first year, but next year we really want to follow this and get to you earlier with, capital projects and the whole transportation plan and engineering capital improvement plan. You go on the second slide, so it just goes through the months, so we'll really be starting in February, putting all our projects together, bringing them to you, getting you to review them, and, working through that process for you to get, everything set for the September when we put in the capital projects. Okay, so, what, if you know, then you've gone through capital planning, we've got projects that come up every year, and that we normally see on the program. And I'll go through those first, and then I'll look at the ones, things we requested that we haven't got, and new requests that we'll propose as drafts, projects for you to review. Let's see, this is just to review the priority streets and the complete streets. This shows all the complete streets, I guess, the green ones are the ones in progress, and then the complete streets, and you've got Vision Zero and the Green Routes plan. So that just reminds everybody what those are. From the retreat we had on June 12th, we did a planning exercise, and this is just a reminder of the things that popped up, as you can see. Again, this was just an exercise, but Main, Clyde, Longwood, Lee, and Harvard, and Trafalgar. So those were the bullets that came out of that exercise. So then I'll start, let's see, so this is the first project is in traffic calming. And we've had our first project, I'm sure I mentioned it, we had successfully in the spring. And we're looking at, we've got 5 kind of draft priorities set up. We went back and reviewed the calculations and the framework we set to kind of rate these. And Amy had worked on that, and the Bob has actually reviewed and gone through it with the JS, and we confirmed. We have a list of that, so we've got a second project we're gearing up for, which would be community outreach starting. This 500K, that first project was about, I think, 450. And that was 37, so we think that's a kind of good number, as an annual project. Okay. The second one is the Vision Zero Action Plan. Again, this was approved by the Transportation Select Board in June and supports Vision Zero safety. I got a typo, sorry about that. And, this year it supported RFB installations at 25 crosswalk locations, this year, so we're real happy when we added the one at Marion, which is great. And this only supported the labor, because we got a grant from the state for all the equipment, which is fantastic. So we, again, like to recommend it and ask for that same amount of money. Bicycle access improvements, again, this is an annual one that comes up. That picture on the right is actually our working map that we do for bike projects. And we list where all the new ones are coming, where we'd like to see things. So this money basically we use this funding on the pavement management projects. So components that are bike related, we're gonna charge, and we're charging to the bike access. And the same with if we're doing RFPs as part of a project, well, that'll come under Vision Zero. So it's a useful way, and this money really helps us. And I guess what I'm saying is a synergy, and we learned this on Harvard Street. When we added some things and we looked at some kind of more quick build, that we can use both of these funds to supplement our projects for the management plan, unless they go into a further design. All right, this Beacon Street bridle path, as you all know, this is all under design. We're gearing up. The survey took a little longer than we would have liked, but it's almost done, and the consultant will get to a 10%, get to some level, and we'll have something to present for the fall. So we're really looking forward to that. Bill Smith has been doing outstanding work with the coordination for the C branch and thinking about this project at the same time and making sure that everything's seamless. And he's been in yeoman's work. And anyway, this design will leverage state funding, like Washington Street and Rita Tip project. The parking meter replacement, we have old meters. You've probably seen this slide, and we need to maintain them. So we had a plan to do 10% replacement every year, and so we're going through that. We're requesting 235,000. We did get a batch, so we're doing some, but we're hoping to keep going. And the other thing I'll just mention, I think it was in a prior meeting, but we're piloting pay by plate at meter out in the town hall lot. This is TNC, Transportation Network Company funding for the state. We just learned our revenue, so you can see it's going up for this year. We put a placeholder in the capital improvement project plan every year for 100, but we typically get more, and we're looking at ways to use this money and looking for ideas from the staff and you. Normally it's for council on aging, transportation, and some teen center, but so that's that item.
Is that from the Uber rides and stuff?
Yep, Uber and Lyft, it's funds, I guess it's per ride, so it's based on how many rides there are. And this is Washington Street rehab. Again, we're looking, this is gonna get into right away pretty soon, and the town's responsible for that piece. And then there's a municipal parts of it, and it was lighting, thoughts of working on design for lighting. So there's funding that needs for the municipal funded pieces of it. And that's what this funding is for Washington Street. Okay, Davis Path Footbridge. Right now, we're getting close. This is not a fully endorsed project. We're working our way towards 25% design. The utilities are really tricky because it's really tight. To try to get in there, we're looking at overhead wires and where the sewers are and how the cranes are gonna get in. So that's a meeting that's coming up this month to kind of coordinate that with MassDOT, and so that's moving. And we're looking forward to that one as well. The biggest one, as you know, is the PMPV road maintenance. We've done a lot of study, and we look at the pavement conditions. We are consultant, and we come up with a 5-year plan. And they say 8.4, so I dropped this is 7.1. Then if we add the chapter 90, we get to the number we want. So hopefully we'll get that. This has been a great program. As we're getting roads done and improving conditions, while at the same time trying to incorporate as much as we can for bicycle pedestrian safety. Okay, sidewalks and ramps. We talked about body work, so we're really. We have a 2-year contract out, and we're trying to get as many ramps as we can, and we want to keep going. Because we really like the idea of, as we do our projects, we take care of all the ramps ahead of time, and just try to year ahead. Doesn't always work, but that's the plan. This year we had some contractor, with the blue lights slowed down, but we're fine, and we're hoping to get this again to carry on that work. And then this goes to this, now I'm getting into the previously requested and new CIP project and program request. So Lee and Clyde, okay, so this is one of the big ones. This comes obviously from the South Brookline to the Brookline High School study that was done. I'm reading back, it goes back to 2009. Just before I got here, there was a bike pilot. When I first was looking at coming to Brookline, I looked at all the streets. I looked at Lee and Clyde, man, they could do so much right there. So, that's one, and it's one thing I will point, it's a 7,000 foot corridor and it's wide. And, I put a pretty big number. It could even be bigger depending on what you want to do. Cause it could involve a lot of lighting. If you do a really conservative estimate, that design number could be higher. It's a huge long corridor. But, I think with all the background and the alternatives analysis, for me as an engineer, I go, that's one that I could recommend, I think would make sense, but anyway, it's got broad support about everything I've seen. It meets the goals of multimodal safety. I was thinking of it today as a multimodal safety corridor right to the Brookline Reservoir. I mean, this is a kind of even a little bit recreation, but anyway. So the capital request, the design, and then I put it in the, you'll see a little later where that comes as far as a construction project. That'll be a later request. It's not looking at tip of that at present, so just we've got plenty on the board already, and so that would be locally funded. All right, Brookline Ave. So this is another attractive one. This one has synergy with Netherlands because we want to get from Netherlands. We'd like to get across Brookline Ave. A lot of thought on that, but this is a 1,800 foot arterial connects Brookline Hills to the medical center, and the Vision Zero implementation plan certainly, calls out things that could be done on the road, curb extensions, daylighting, RFPs. They didn't mention bike on here. I think there's a portion that could be upgraded, but you've got the shared use path along the one side for the portion. But they did say we'd like to improve the connections to the shared use path at Winham and then look at things we could do on the street. This would support looking at that, taking the time, and doing that. This is on the 2028, so we need to shift a little bit. We have our program for, maintenance. We may need to move this 1 year to wait for the time to get back to it. Once the design.
You're saying shift it out to 29 or 30?
Yeah, we could push it out, so that's the thinking there, if you
But
decide.
the paving is on for, is that what you said it was on for 28? I thought it was 27.
Originally it was 27.
Yeah, it's just, but we can push it out, sorry, 27, I have the number wrong.
Okay.
So we can move that as needed, it's a mill and overlay, if we do a year or two, we can go with it.
Yeah.
If it's
So
designed,
back to 28. not
Yeah.
29.
yeah.
Would be move in another,
Well, the thing about this would happen in, this money wouldn't be available until fiscal 28, or next July.
Yeah.
And then we do the design, and then the construction could happen a year later.
Okay.
All right? Well, it's like Cypress, again, this is, this, for the pavement management program, we show the full length. I think from High Street all the way across Boylston to Washington, 2,700 foot corridor. I guess I only have the first half, but this, we'd look at this, at least particularly the western piece, which has got more space. The section from Boylston to Washington is pretty narrow. I mean, you could put some RFPs in there maybe, in some sort of locations. But this is really, the other side is the side that we're going to take, we could use a good review, because there's some wide intersections. There's things that can certainly be done to tighten things up and make it safer. But,
Would we,
go ahead.
is it okay to ask a question?
Yeah, you can certainly ask me questions.
Would we consider extending that to the Paul Pender Rotary, or does it have to end at the end of Cypress?
Well, yeah, I mean, we can definitely take a look. We've got it in the pavement plan for, actually, we've got,
Chestnut Street's on.
we show. Where's the,
Oh, it's still on Chestnut Street somewhere.
I think we do show that full corridor, 28. We show that full corridor for 28, I think, that all the way through. Well, yeah.
31.
Yeah. Go away.
So green is
Cypress.
2028.
Yeah, 2028, and that's the full length. We could segment that.
No, but, sorry,
And you're asking if we can extend it to the rotary?
yeah, because the rest of Chestnut's not till 2031, but
Right.
that segment, which is very short.
Oh, yeah, I see.
Has a lot of,
Yeah,
as we've discussed, has a
Yeah.
lot of, safety issues.
yeah, we could definitely take a look at that, so, you know, add a price for it, but that would put it on the maintenance plan. But if you wanted to extend that, I know we are looking at some, upgrades in that area for our needs, we've got grant.
Yeah, we've got, we're working with a consultant on safety improvements for the Fall Center Rotary,
Okay.
which would, add new crossings and improve existing crossings.
So that would be part of the
That was,
Chestnut Street?
Well, that's a separate, it's a separate
Just its own
grant.
thing,
Yeah.
okay.
But, yeah, we could talk about how we could potentially do that portion of Chestnut Street earlier. It has parking on both sides and bike lanes on both sides, so there's definitely a good width there.
Yeah,
And
I mean, as long as if you're looking at the rotary and it's separate, that's fine, I just want to get that rotary.
yeah, well, I can bring to that too.
Yeah, the Rotary is more difficult, it's joint ownership, DCR cost and, so.
Okay,
Dan, with Brookline Ave, right?
Yeah.
It's originally on the 27 paving schedule.
Yeah.
It gets moved to 28. Is there an opportunity to look at the Cypress Street where it's narrow roadway, not much of any kind of design that needs to be done with that? And that roadway there is in very poor shape. I don't know if with Brookline Ave moving up to 28, does that give us an opportunity
we could,
to address that? Because the condition line there is probably, you guys ride it every day,
sure.
you know?
What are you talking about?
You know?
No,
I should say the Brookline, please say right.
No. Obviously, we can work to move things around. We, as part of this whole process that we're working on right now.
Yeah.
We need to just clearly define which roads are part of a design process and
Yeah.
which ones we can really just pave, because we need to have those chess pieces where we've identified them as like
Right.
paving only.
Yeah.
And that's what allows us to shift them around, because we need to obviously find dollar values that are somewhat similar. You can't just, trade out a Lee and Clyde for a Cypress Street in terms of like how much it would cost to pave. I know Lee and Clyde's not on there, but like,
Right,
so that's a good example of, unless we did it one way, like Cypress Street is nothing's happening to it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't wanna give you anything.
Dan, never say that again.
not opposed to that.
All right.
No.
We need roads that we just know we are just gonna.
And make the improvements that we can, like, each go stop,
Yeah.
that we're not having to go too long.
And I had
process.
one other question is, as I'm driving here tonight, going down Warren Street, bicyclists is coming up the other way, and you know how narrow Warren Street is. And I know over on Dudley Way by the reservoir, or Dudley Street by the reservoir, we have shallow markings. And is that a thought process as far as looking ahead, when we're doing some of these roadways over, that we consider shallow markings?
There's mixed feelings on Sharrows, and, there actually might be some guidance on when you can even use a Sharrow, both on like ADT and like speeds of the road, so,
Okay. So based on traffic counts too, or if the traffic counts?
well, the ADT, just like the average daily traffic.
So, got it.
Yeah, so it counts of vehicles.
Some data says you're safer without one, but.
Yeah, it's like a false sense of security, so
Right,
it's one of the hot topics.
Yes,
especially
Dan.
when the driver doesn't know what a shower is.
Dan, just to follow up on what Wendy said, if
Yeah.
we can't extend the limits of Cypress Street to the circle, could we at least try to extend it to Chestnut Street?
Yeah, I think so,
It
yeah,
looks like right now it's kind of ending at High Street.
yeah, we can certainly look at it, yeah,
Thank you.
of course. Unless some, I don't know, some utility that.
Yeah,
has to
yeah,
be
yeah.
done.
I understand.
All right, St. Paul, this is another one that was, came out of some of the discussions. This one's, the only section that's within Brookline that's got parking is that north piece, goes all the way up to Common Ave. That's only 300 feet, so it's narrow, so it's tough for bike improvements, along it, but curb to curb is only 34 feet. Again, the last, as I mentioned, there are opportunities, it was highlighted in the Mission Zero plan, curb extensions, daylighting, left-turn hiding, RFBs. And, they said, bicycle accommodation, but again, I think it's a tough one to look at for that, but we can certainly design, we can take a look at it.
Has the stop sign helped, do we think? The new stop sign they just went in?
I don't, I mean,
The
The
other
one-
side of Beacon Street?
Brown?
The one at Dummer having gone, like St. Paul and
Brown.
Dummer. Oh, Brown, yeah.
Get any feedback?
There's, residents have said how happy they are, but there hasn't been any crashes.
Slows traffic down.
So, yeah.
Keep point.
Yeah, no crashes.
Great.
Okay.
I'll note the fact that when they did Babcock Street, and they made it 9-foot vehicle lengths, the crashes went from 4 to 1 per year.
that's great.
Yeah, so I know it's a tighter roadway, but also that might be something for St. Paul to consider. And it might allow
Those space.
some space for
Yeah.
bicycle.
Yeah, I always tell a story, I come from East Hampton, Svenny, and now come from East Hampton, but came to work here. And, East Hampton, Cottage Street, right downtown, as you come off the mountain into the town, it's like a village. And the lanes are 10 feet, and there's parking right there. First came to town, oh my gosh, this is good. But I learned over my time, it was the safest place, it was the only place in town anybody went 12 miles an hour. When there was parked cars there, you just slow it down, there's that, really effective, so I will say there's sometimes there were mirrors that got taken out sometimes, but I thought it was worth it.
Better than people.
All right, I'm sorry to go aside like that. Longwood, this is the narrowest of all the ones we're looking at. This one's 32 feet, 3,000 foot. I know it's a long desired, wish. Back had this on the top of the list a couple of years ago. There are opportunities to do some things. I see outreach is gonna be tough, but, again, it's on the list. We can certainly look at it and move it in. It's on all the list, for improvements.
Is the intent to improve the corridor along the entire length or just improve intersections?
We could do it either way. We could just look at the intersections. There's certainly, work to do with the intersections and improvements that could be made. That's really what the Joe, they were looking at.
Is the Jamaica Way the boundary with Where does the town line end going towards the medical
I
center?
think it's Muddy River.
The bridge, yeah, I think,
Before the bridge.
yeah.
We don't have ownership of the bridge, and actually, like 2 years ago, they started a conversation about safety improvements for the bridge,
Mhm,
which have gone nowhere, but there are at least discussions about making the bridge safer.
mhm.
Okay. Next up, Upper Washington, this is, in progress, it's in design, we're moving towards it, it's a goal, the idea is just to match those, get done. Lower Washington Street, it's a pretty short section, locally funded, and, looking, that's on for, 2031. I thought I'd include it, because it's so long plan. Next up, Netherlands Road, I mentioned this before, we've looked at it a lot, within the group, ideas, the one thing is getting across that island, get down those stairs. How to get around, trying to figure out, and then basically making that, the entrance in front of water and sewer and trucks out of the back end to do maintenance. It's a complicated, it sounds like it should be easy, but it's not, and, again, I was mentioning, this ties in pretty closely with Brookline Ave, maybe some processes that whole area, could definitely use improvement, it's a lot of cycles, there are a lot of people walking through there too. Okay, this is a parking lot maintenance, we put this up last year, we did not get funded. We've got 21 parking lots, schools, facilities, commercial areas, 9 football fields worth. So we'd like to get systematic about doing these, because a lot of them are falling into disrepair. So that's one of the capital items we had. Pedestrian lighting, I know there was a committee at some point in the past that really wanted to push for this. And I think it was listed in last year's as a future project. 200,000, I'd like to get, annual and really, come up with a lighting master plan, uniformly, and come up with places to do it. So that's another item in the plan. This was first time last year, Dan Martin is the champion of this. We all are, but the 67-inch traffic signals and 13 priority ones, and they get old. And we need to figure out a way to try to get a systematic way to get these replaced as well. We can make a lot of upgrades, the loops, like to move away from the loops if we can, use more camera, not getting anybody's identity, just count cars and try to make the signals work more efficiently. But this is one we've had in, at some point, if they start to fail, this will have to move up to the top, but there's definitely no signals. Go ahead.
So with these, would it allow like, computer controls, whether it's AI or what have you, as far as identifying, the network as far as working traffic through, when they see like it's a heavy in a particular area?
Yeah.
Will this infrastructure for these brands?
Yeah, for the new ones,
Give it flexibility down the road?
yeah, I think for the new ones that's built in.
Yeah,
Something Dan Martin's pushing for, when we're doing an upgrade, we try to do that.
and how old are the oldest ones that we have?
Oh, I don't know the answer.
Is that just that?
Before you and I were born?
You need it like just the whole.
Once it's built out here, it's a,
Yeah.
we'll get into that first.
Those three are the oldest though, Kent, Aswell, Longwood, and Montford.
So the priorities, Dan, like, call those out, say, those three first.
You might have to get them up to the auto museum.
So Longwood Ave and Kent, it's just upgrading the equipment, right? We're not trying to do any eminent domain to
I don't believe.
sidewalk locations there right now.
Right now,
Yeah.
No, we take a look once we get the funding. We look at it all and figure
That
out.
would be part of the Longwood corridor project. Okay.
Next up, right away, this is another item we put in, this is more things that aren't really maintenance, things come up, we need to like expensive control of brakes and guardrails, et cetera, and put this in to try to have some extra funding to be able to take care of things as they happen, rather than waiting. Independence Drive, I think the planning board, there was 350,000 set aside for complete streets construction. But we haven't done the design yet, so this would take a look at that. Funny, this wasn't in for bikes on the, I don't think it was in for bikes on the Vision Zero plan, but certainly opportunity for all kinds of improvements there. And that's one that's in the plan. And then, you've got it in front of you, what I did was I don't know if you know, every September we submit this and it goes upstairs and then it goes to town meeting. But this is our capital improvement plan, and it's a list there, those red ones are the ones that came out of like the workshop. And then there's Lee and Clyde, there's Cypress, Brookline Ave, St. Paul and Longwood Avenue. And what I've done is those are the red ones, and you can see what I did below is it shows where they fall under the maintenance program. And so what highlighted there are kind of the things, the ones that I think might make the most sense. Not that you, just as a recommendation to you all to think about. Let's see, what else? Oh, the only other say on that green one up top is just that's state or federal dollars. So part of the capital improvement plan from the town. It's just money that we get to spend. It's either a tip job or it's the TNC is the other one I've got. So we can go to the next one. And then also I've done here is I took all the ones up top are mostly the design side, and then on the bottom, I kind of show them where they can follow construction. Washington, this. So they show out in the out years where they fall. And the one thing also is anything that you guys don't choose to move into design, and the outreach that would start, if you did make that choice, would come under the maintenance plan, and we'll do everything we could, as much as we could, short of the outreach needed for any big changes, big parking changes, or maybe, I don't know, we'll think about the parking protecting. I know it's a big topic now, so, but anyway, those are the recommendations I've got. I'll have it on the slide too. It's hard to read here. So again, I mentioned Brookline Ave. I think it's got a lot of synergy with Netherlands Road. And again, connections to that change path on the east side. We could do both together. We come up with a single capital project to roll that together to get the design finished. With that process, I mentioned Lee and Clyde. I think it's a great project. It's an expensive project. It's a big project, but there's been a lot of review of it. Alternative analysis was done. South Brookline to Brookline High School, it's a multimodal corridor. The other thing I think that I haven't really done, and we need to, is outside of the maintenance program. And so the roads we're talking about, we've still got the Vision Zero implementation table. And there's a lot of things on there that aren't related, we haven't gotten to yet, and we should think about those too. Maybe not for fiscal 28, but we should definitely start thinking about those, and we'll incorporate what we can with the maintenance program as much as possible. And I'm looking forward to, finding a way, we pick out the ones that we wanna move and design, and we do the quicker bill, easier stuff, using the program funds that we have every year, the bicycle dollars, the Vision Zero dollars, and the traffic calming dollars, because we have, like I said, say buckets for those, and we can use those on our maintenance projects as much as possible. And see what's fixed. I'll just will say one thing, I have a great staff, we do a ton of work. There's a great list, unbelievable, I'm the luckiest guy in the world to have such great staff. But that's a list, so I don't wanna overwork us too, so pick a couple, but don't pick 6.
Yeah.
And the other thing, to be realistic, as you look at the capital improvement, you look at the $27. We don't get all our projects, and we don't get all, sometimes we lose dollars, so last year was tough for us. We took a hit, reductions in some things. So, we have capacity, we do a lot of work, but, we'd love to move some of your priorities forward. And that's really, see, and then there's my team, and, there's 14, outstanding people. And, I wanna thank them for letting me lead them and letting me work with them. And I'd like to thank you for all your support of us, because it's really important. And, so thanks. So,
Thank you. No,
Thank you again.
Yes.
This is great. So just to be clear, you're asking the transportation board to sort of endorse the recommendations.
or review, when,
Okay,
yeah,
but assuming we do that, it then has to go through an entire months-long additional process before we get to town meeting next May. So this is the beginning of a very long process, so, and there's no guarantees, right? So I think it's important that we try to put a stake in the ground and say, this is what's important to us. And the dollar figures that you arrived at, Dan, on here, is that are those targeted dollars or?
Yeah, they're not, I mean, what I did is I kind of prorated back from Harvard and what the design cost and what the size of the road was. I haven't gone out and scoped all these and got consultant numbers, because, we don't, I haven't done that yet. Until we land on a couple, then we can refine it.
Okay, so I also had a question, the second round of speed humps,
Yes,
Lawton, Thorndike, Coolidge, Fuller, Naples, Gills, Elliott, where does that funding come from?
that's from the traffic calm goals.
Okay.
We've got some money in there, we can do actually 2 projects. And that's, we could actually do 2 in a year, one.
And is there another sort of grouping of streets like that for 28?
Yeah, we have, I didn't bring no list with me, and apologies, that's what we get, but we have 5, I know we have more than 5.
Is it like you said, 34 humps?
I think, yeah, that's what we did 37 on the first one. Right. And there were 2 out there, and then, something around that size is about, came out.
Are you thinking of doing a cluster, or are you trying to
Well,
target it a little bit more?
yeah, there's 2 clusters that we will be proposing. There's the North Brookline cluster, which is the Thorndike, Coolidge, Fuller, Lawton, Maple, Fields, and then there's the southern, I don't know, it's not southern Brookline, but
Southern Law.
it's the Elliott,
Okay,
Loveland, Ackers,
yes.
area. And so it would be one contract with just two locations, and then, we do have, Rob, as Dan has said, Rob's been working on the scoring of additional locations, so we do have multiple projects based off of 30 years of requests and data.
So that's right, so those selection, that list that Brian just read, those were basically from requests.
Not just for requests, it was the new traffic calming policy for 2024, where we actually took, we identified a method for looking at like speed, crash history, volumes and requests. And so there was a scoring process that took all of that into consideration, and it identified a couple of those roads, and then the principle that we're applying is the cluster, that like if we put it on 3 roads, you would just, you would send traffic to the others, right? And so by doing a cluster, it calms the whole neighborhood. So that's something that we're looking to start the engagement on this fall, in the next 2 months or so, to construct in April of 2027.
It's great.
And then, I was talking with Brian last week, and we were talking about leading Clyde. And it's great to hear that, you see big things that could happen there. And my meeting, what I discussed with Brian is trying to do traffic calming now. Whether it's a road guy or something, but then look for a bigger plan down the road. As far as, really kind of getting involved in that corridor, because obviously it's amazing things. I know Peter Ford, I was looking at what his ideas, kicked off and everything, and it's just, it's amazing what we can do. And it's definitely a doable place, but that's a probably potential tip, down the road, 10 years down the road. But if we can address the traffic calming, again, I'll repeat, is that, we had a 15-year-old struck on a bicycle in September.
Yeah.
And obviously we just lost Louisa guy from Boston, Transportation, and that individual was fortunate, and that's why I'm just stressing about doing, and not trying to invest the minimum.
Yeah.
To try to get the best results now, and that we can plan a bigger thing for down the road, if it's into our plans.
We can certainly take a look, it hasn't come up yet on the maintenance plan, but we can certainly take a look at improvements we can do in the shorter term. We'll get our hands into it.
Okay, that'd be great.
Go ahead.
Just a couple of questions on funding sources. So Dan, you had mentioned a couple times on roadways that you would expect would be paid for by the town. Which ones on here are you expecting to put in for on the step?
On the tip?
Yeah.
Oh, well, boy, we've got Washington Street there now. Beacon Street, we need to get programmed, and that's a huge bridle path. Yeah, and then Davis is not yet, but that's,
That's in the
we're doing design now on that. So, I mean, those 3. Beacon Street alone is a huge project. You know, twice the size, I think, it's as big as Washington Street. So as far as tip, I mean, you could put Lee and Clyde in that future bucket, you could, I mean, these things take time. Like you guys all remember when Washington Street started in 2030, before we're getting done, so it takes a lot of time, so by that time, you know, I would come back, yeah. So I would defer to, Brookline to decide what they want.
Yeah, so just when we're looking at this right now,
Yeah.
there's a percentage of these that the funding isn't necessarily coming. It'll be dependent on whether it ends up on the tip or not.
Yeah, and I'm sure Brian will bet. I'd be amazed, because it's.
Yeah, Brattleboro in, and I think Washington Street is already in.
Yeah, they got numbers, they have numbers.
Everything else isn't in yet.
Yeah.
And the numbers aren't, it's not 100% of the cost of the project either.
Right, that's true, there's a fair amount of money that you pay for, you know, just the process.
Yeah, there's certain things that
It's
are
a
not
lot.
participating and so forth.
Yeah, I think like currently, like Boston has about 35 tip projects going, Somerville and Cambridge are around a dozen. Does it matter as far as like the funding to get qualified for a tip project? Or is it, you know, only what you can handle, out of the equation, like where Somerville and Cambridge.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
What do you mean?
Other words, you know, we have 2 tip projects, potentially 3.
Oh, I
right?
see.
So is,
It's really about how they
what,
score.
what prevents from getting,
Well, so I can
4 or
talk about
5,
this.
yeah.
I sit on the MPO that gives all this money.
Yeah.
I have a permanent seat on it. And we look at this stuff all the time. There's 99 communities that qualify, including Brookline. I know it's amazing to some people that there are other towns and cities other than Brookline in Massachusetts. It's a miracle. All of those communities are looking for lots of money because chapter 90 continually fails municipalities. So it really is how it scores on a variety of safety measures, just like we do scoring, and Rob put together the whole matrix. The MPO staff has a staff of 65 people, I want to say. Is that about right, Rob? 65? You know, it's been a while. That goes through this and scores all these projects, so it really depends on how it scores. There is also, I will say, I think there is a huge amount of geographic spreading of dollars that the board tries to do. So the fact that Boston has 35 projects, it's also 700,000 people. So there is a huge desire to not just make sure all the money goes to Brookline, Boston, Newton, Everett, Chelsea. There's a huge desire to spread that around. So I think the fact that we have 2 is amazing and is due to the hard work of Aaron and these folks up here. I don't think we're gonna have a lot more luck getting a lot more stuff on there.
fantastic.
That's
That
my,
leads me to my next question.
that's my suggestion. What's your next question?
So what percentage of these projects is grant dependent?
A grant dependent? Oh, I mean, if the funding's locally, given, we'll move forward. But, you know, as far as what's on there, what's on the docket for grants now, we get, you know, there's not a lot. We get the RFPs. We could look at, we get some more complete street money coming from the APN signals. We've got the Safe Streets for All, that's one planning grant. So mostly they're not grant. Yeah. I mean, except for the tip jobs that we're showing there.
I have a question about, Lee and Clyde. So you talked about having like a lot of ideas and seeing a lot of potential there.
Yeah.
There's no, I think I'm right, there's no traffic light between, like Heath Street and the end, which is Newton Street, right? So do you, in your kind of like vision of this, like, do you think that needs to be a tip project? It seems like there's a lot that can be done.
It's a big, I mean, it's a big project. I mean, you have a lot to take on, locally. We got Upper Washington still to do.
But even though it's, I mean, it seems less, maybe I'm wrong, it seems less complicated than like a Washington Street
Yeah.
where you have, you know, a lot of lighted intersections,
Yeah.
you have businesses, you have a lot of streets coming in. Like,
It's really just scope.
Yeah.
Like, as like Richard was saying, like if you guys wanted to direct us to move forward with the public process for a road diet with carbon protected bike lanes. We're talking about a couple $100,000 in like grinding paint, putting down paint, adding posts, like that's a $250,000 project. We're talking about installing new signals, doing sidewalk level bike lanes, pedestrian lighting, that's a TIP project, that's a $15 million project for the lane.
And
So-
eliminating the dangerous curve.
And so it's just
Right.
everything, it's the two polar ends.
Right.
And, if, you guys help lead us onto what it is you want, short-term, long-term.
Yeah.
We can tell you how it can fit into the CIP. We could find a way to do it in the next, 2 years, probably, if it was a quick build option. For sure, with public, but, we factor in public process, but, if you wanted, sections of, Lake Clyde with no sidewalks or four sidewalks, that's when we start talking about.
So I put the 800 in, I didn't want to lowball it. And I know there's a whole range of things that we wouldn't really determine until we sat down and looked at it, so
Yeah.
that's the reason that was high.
No,
So, because certainly you could just do a quicker thing, when it gets up, time to go big, we can certainly look at all that, but there are, like, we could grind, we could do different things.
right,
I know we talked, you and I talked, I think about doing something with median, so that's why I went a little higher on that.
yeah, I think when we have the opportunity, like a roadway, like Lee and Clyde were talking about, and being able to address safety issues, and it's not a huge investment for the town, I think we should try to tackle
Yeah.
something every year.
Yeah.
That we can, that doesn't need to repave, but we can bring immediate safety on a major corridor that falls within Vision Zero.
Yeah, we don't need to wait
Then
till,
we schedule the pavement later, or whatever the road calls for. Thanks.
Is Nancy still on? Just want to make sure she's not frankly trying to raise her hand and I have.
I'm still on, yeah.
No, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, just want to make sure I haven't forgotten about you. I wasn't sure if you raised your hand and wanted to say something, so please just jump in, Nancy. So Dan, what is it you're looking for us tonight to sort of do? Did you want to vote or?
no, I don't think, I talked to the commissioner about it, and,
Okay.
we'd like you to digest this stuff. And,
Okay.
take a look at what we've shown, and think about what you think makes sense, because you gotta look at, the approval rate of the projects, but if there's something you really want, one or two design you wanna get rolling on.
Mhm.
We'd love your support, we definitely love your support for, the put in, numbers went up with bikes, the numbers are up to Vision Zero, traffic coming. So we'd like the support for that, because those projects are gonna happen no matter what.
Mhm.
The pavement management projects will happen, so if we have good money to supplement those, we'll do as much as we can with those dollars, to do more quick build type stuff. And, short of long average process.
Go ahead, Tim.
Just to add on to what Dan was saying, the just reality of the timeline for this is that we are supposed to submit to Melissa Goff for beginning of September.
Yeah.
Obviously, no August meeting. Hate to float it out as saying it earlier, but the likelihood is that we have a September 15th meeting. And so by that meeting, we would definitely need
Definitely
a vote.
Yeah.
And so if this is something that the board thinks would take 1 to 2 meetings to
Mhm.
follow up, we would want to look at maybe a shorter meeting dedicated to this the first week of September.
I
So
think we're gonna have to jump in.
that's our timeline for confirming the CIP.
Yeah, and I just, Rob, can you just make a note? I also want to talk about the condition of appropriation at that meeting as well. The one we have to do in our September. Just to make sure we're dotting all our i's and crossing all our t's.
Sam, are you referring to the overall or Chestnut Hill Avenue?
No, the items that need to be listed in the CIP
Right,
for starting
Okay.
FY 28.
so Chestnut Hill Avenue,
Well, that's,
starting wise, other than.
No, that's the PMP.
yeah,
That's sort of the PMP.
that's a road job,
bucket.
it's a maintenance job.
These are just for the added items, like if if we wanted to do Netherlands and we include design next year, we need to know to put in a line
Yeah.
item for those two
Okay.
by the first week of by the
Alright.
second week of September.
Now, I know we were talking about Chestnut Hill Ave as far as the road design and everything, but we need to have that
Yeah, we don't have that,
finalized.
No, we'll do-
Step on,
we're okay with that.
okay.
All right, Dan, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Want to think about there. But I really appreciate you doing this. This is the first time I think the board has discussed this.
No, it's good, I'm happy to do it, because you guys you understand why.
Yeah.
What we're up against, and how we're trying to get things done, so.
I appreciate that. There's never enough dough. All right, we'll move on to 6B, discussion and action on the renominations of Monique Richard and Bitsy Perlman to the Shared Mobility Advisory Committee for a term of 1 year, The renomination of Sean Sack and Juliet Jett to the Shared Mobility Advisory Committee for a term. 3 years. Does anyone have any questions on this topic or comments or things they'd like to say? Is Ms. Richards or Perlman or Mr. Sacker, Julie Jett like to say anything? If not, is there a motion to make those appointments as described?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
Thank you, Nancy.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Nancy.
yes.
Thank you, they are appointed. 6C, discussion and action on electing a transportation board chair and vice chair. Would anybody like to nominate anyone to be vice chair? I'll nominate Jonathan. Is there a second to Jonathan's nomination?
Second,
Okay, do you accept the nomination?
Except,
You sure?
don't ask again.
All right, and, anybody want to nominate anyone for chair?
Brian.
Second.
All right, so we'll have one vote with me as chair for a term of 1 year and Jonathan as vice chair for a term of 1 year to coincide with the current fiscal year. Can you call the roll?
Jonathan.
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Nancy.
yes.
Discussion and action electing a transportation board member to serve on the design advisory team for the 1280 to 1330 Boylston Street project.
I have a couple more details.
Please.
We sent out several materials that explain what the project is, so certainly an opportunity to learn more about it if you'd like there. In terms of a couple questions on kind of the logistics of what this commitment would be. The length of the DAT is unknown, but a best guess is 6 to 8 months in terms of a commitment. The expected start date would be after the preliminary presentation, which is expected on August 20th. And in terms of how frequently the DAT would be expected to meet, would be expected every 3 to 4 weeks.
Who's chairing it? Do we know?
We do not know that.
There.
I'm a very big black board person.
Yes. Probably Michael, because he's here. No? Okay. Well, anybody want to volunteer?
I've been asked by my fellow P60, P15, TMs, in my backyard.
Okay,
So if you.
you want it? It's all yours, as far as I'm concerned. Plus, we can also always nominate Len, because he's not here. He does, actually. All right.
It will give him a title.
All right, so, Richard, I'll nominate Richard to serve on this, design advisory committee, team, whatever we're calling it. Is there a second?
Jonathan,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yeah.
Richard, and Nancy.
Yes.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'm sorry, thank you, Richard. I'm getting tired already.
And the design, I hate their site layout.
Thank you for sharing. Right, 6E, and we're almost on time. Discussion and action on the Gateway East bus pilot recommendation.
Okay, yes.
Get away, Rob.
We're going with the presentation, Dylan. And Eileen, just confirming that you're here.
Yes.
So just in terms of the presentation for today, what we're gonna be talking about is a history and timeline of the project, of the pilot. Some key takeaways that are happening and some conclusions and what the next steps would be for us. So move on to the next slide and slide after that, please.
Oh, sorry. One second.
Yeah.
It needs to be recorded.
Look at that. Thank you.
So next slide, please.
Okay.
All right, so the Gateway East Lane pilot was a collaborative effort that the MBTA, Mass DOT and Town of Brookline set upon to build upon the 2021 corridor reconstruction. the principles that the board set out for this priority bus lane pilot were to do things like prioritizing safe, space efficient and energy efficient movement of people and goods, designing and improving our public ways, focusing on high traffic routes with with improving connectivity and directness, and responding to climate change by prioritizing health, access, and equity of Brookline's public ways. The performance indicators, we collected information from user feedback surveys, MBTA bus travel time, variability of that travel time. Volume and speed was tracked on Boylston Street, secondary roads, and residential side streets. Vehicle travel times and control delay were calculated, and there was analysis done of queues. And I think Eileen, you're gonna take it from here for the next couple slides.
Sure. So the project timeline, just to remind folks of where we started, the effort for planning began back in 2020, and then the Brookline T-Board authorized the bus lanes as a pilot project in 2021, funded by the T. The bus lanes were installed in 2024, and this concluded in fall 2024. There was some other ongoing work to activate the transit signal priority throughout the year. That activated the year-long pilot process. And then we received additional direction last October, rather than extending the pilot further, to look into revising the existing project with a partial eastbound bus lane removal. Next slide. Some of the key takeaways, as you recall, we had 4 quarterly presentations that have the detailed findings of the pilot analysis. So in general, just looking at the larger chunks of this project and how they were functioning, the westbound bus lane was working well. We saw that the eastbound bus lane between Station over to the Boylston and High Street intersection was also working well, functioning essentially as a queue jump for the buses. Continuing east from there, from that intersection from Boylston and High Street, eastbound to the town line, is where we saw more challenges. There were a lot of issues with driver compliance with the bus lane as a primary issue. A lot of drivers traveling directly east through the right turn lane on Boylston Street Route 9, rather than taking that right continuing through. We saw just a lot of these patterns continue. And so the data does show that the bus lanes provided time savings where the bus lanes exist. But of course, those benefits are reduced when buses re-enter mixed traffic. And the mixed traffic condition is essentially what they're experiencing in that section between High Street over to the town line. So the efficacy was reduced. And
Then-
in terms of, yep,
Go
back to
ahead.
Rob, sorry.
And then moving on to the takeaways for general traffic, Route 9 volumes were generally consistent. The pilot saw that the volumes on side streets did increase, but very moderately. Vehicle speeds were generally lower than the baseline. Vehicle travel times were near the baseline overall, so not huge impacts on general traffic. The Boylston Street eastbound approach did show, of all those kind of segments of roadways, the most significant queue increase. I think precisely because of that confusion on that right turn lane, being in a right turn lane and not allowing general traffic or through movements. So in terms of the conclusion and next steps, the MBTA and town staff, we reviewed all these metrics, the public comments that came in, the public feedback and input from the town departments, and assessed which pilot elements were working and could be retained in the final condition. Town staff recommend that the Transportation Board consider the following final configurations. 1, to remove the eastbound bus lane from Boylston Street, High Street to Town Line. 2, retain the westbound bus lane from Town Line, River Road to Station Street. And 3, retain the eastbound bus lane from Station Street to Boylston Street, High Street, Route 9. The Transportation Board recommendation would be forwarded to the Select Board, and final implementation would require the Select Board to approve an MOU and an updated traffic control agreement with Mass DOT.
Any questions? I guess I just wanted to clarify the right turn only will go back to general traffic, right?
That would be, we should turn back to a through movement.
Okay,
What's the timing for that change back, I guess?
So Eileen, could you speak to the timing? What would need to happen in terms of removing the markings? This would be an MBTA capital project. And Eileen offer some level of details, though I'll let her speak to that.
Sure. So since the process of removing the glass bead aggregate, the red materials, is more than what our typical quick build contractors or our contracts can do, we have engaged Capital Delivery to work with their contractors. So after tonight's determination, we can move forward with working toward final construction documents and get that moving. So it is a little bit of a longer process than what our quick build contracts are, but they would look to try to do that this year. But again, we would need to see following this meeting, we can pick back up. So yeah, we don't have the timeline yet, but part of it was waiting to get tonight's determination.
okay.
So it sounds like next year.
We don't know. Yeah, probably next year. Would anyone like to comment on this item? Seeing no hands jump up, is there a motion to remove the eastbound lane, bus only lane on Boylston Street? As part of the Gateway East 1 year pilot project from 2020.
Don't you need public comment first?
I asked, I didn't see any hands go
Oh,
up.
I didn't realize you were asking for public comment.
Okay, sorry. Okay, people weren't clear, I apologize. Would anyone like to comment on this item? Okay, seeing none.
No, you have a hand raised.
Trevette. Thank you, Dylan. Go ahead, David.
Thank you very much. This is just David Trevette, Chair of the Pedestrian Advisory Committee. When speaking myself, I mean, I'm just sitting here thinking, okay, so I'm not sure I understand this, but it sounds to me like we're saying this was a failure on the eastbound section and a failure because of non-compliance. So instead of doing anything to improve compliance, we abandoned the project. And I just want to be sure that I'm understanding the situation correctly. Am I?
Well, I would disagree with your presentation that way. I don't think it's failing because of non-compliance. I think it's failing because the road is too narrow. And as I've said before, we either could have built a dedicated bike lane or a bus only lane, but not both. And we tried to put 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag. It didn't work. We gave this a good try. We've done a 1 year pilot for 5 years now. And it just doesn't work. The geometry just doesn't work. Now, maybe if we had waited and timed this better with what Boston wants to do in Huntington Ave, maybe the throughput could have been better. We didn't do that. So we're here. We realize it works pretty well westbound. The Q jump works pretty well by Station Street. The eastbound lane just doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, the right turns within the bus lane itself also pose issues. There's a lot of general traffic that wants to make those right turns, whereas in the westbound direction, it's significantly lower. So that's a big role in it as well.
So David, I don't think anyone wanted this to work more than I did. I mean, given what I do for a living, I really wanted this to work. But
Yeah.
we tried it, we gave it the old college try, we made a very good faith effort, and it just didn't work, so.
Yeah, no, I just wasn't sure whether any attempt at better enforcement would make any significant difference. And that's the only question I wanted to raise. So thank you very much.
We would make a lot of money if we did enforcement every day out there right now.
There's enforcement challenges across the town and across the region and across the state and across the country, if you will. There's not much we can do as a board about that. Anyone else have any comments? Sorry, Richard.
Yes, no, it comes back to us.
Okay. Any other public comments? You can use the raise hand function and we'd be delighted to hear from you. Oh, hey,
So yeah, I am a resident pretty close to, the Rhineland Ends. My name is Vic Mackey, I'm a resident, I live on the street. And I myself failing to, so I do understand that there are some right turn lanes in there where bus traffic and where cars, private vehicles may be in this right turn lane. But honestly, I do think that it seems personally a little silly to me to be throwing a big up bathwater, so to speak, and not just returning the lane, but spending the money to move the lane when we do know that there are improvements and we're on channel and pull that when we drive.
thank you. Any additional public comments?
Brian, I couldn't hear what she was saying. I don't know, is there a microphone there or something?
There's a bi-directional microphone kind of in the middle of the room that would probably not pick up what was said. Do you mind coming up and saying it again so the folks online can hear you? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's.
I think we need to do that for all the public comment because otherwise it's really, I
Okay.
can't hear it.
Okay, thank you. I didn't know that, Nancy, so thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, so Nancy, the gist of my statement was mostly that considering that there is a plan in place for the city of Boston to install some improvements on that Huntington Avenue corridor, I don't really see a point in spending the money and the labor to remove this bus lane, even though it is potentially underperforming. If we can speculate on potential improvements and this throughput in the future with the Huntington Avenue improvements, I would like to see less labor change.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Can we just clarify about, is that okay?
Oh, yeah, please.
About, so the comment about underperforming, because if I read this correctly, it's not that it's underperforming for the bus did actually speed up quite a bit, right? It's that the backup
I think,
for,
yeah, I think the majority of the performance improvement is the Q jump lane off of Washington Street onto Washington Street, onto Route 9. So I think
Right.
you're not gonna see as much of a return back to the previous condition as you might imagine.
But a lot of the discussion in the documents was just the sort of cost benefit between the improvements to the bus versus a very much of a slowing in of the car time and the length of the queuing, right? So.
So I think, yeah, we found that there wasn't much of an impact upon general traffic. And in terms of the buses, we didn't see much of an impact in that eastbound direction. Precisely because there wasn't much compliance that was happening and a lot of vehicles were going into the same, sharing the lanes and making their right turn movements and the like. But we did see improvements in bus travel time and variability improvements for the other two bus lanes.
Okay, I think I read the data in terms of the car impact. Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to make a discussion and motion behind the eastbound, Brookline Village, Washington Street is if we're gonna eliminate the eastbound on Boylston Street, that we should also forego the small section there at that intersection of Brookline Village there, Route 9, where it's suggested to maintain that, but it's. So I
That's where the benefits came from. Right.
But I just think it's a short, one intersection, then bus priority line goes away. And I just see that the westbound is, we're maintaining that, and that's a complete network and it was, I know public comment back at the beginning of the project was kind of huge in the Brookline Village area. And where it's just at the traffic light is the ask to maintain that bus priority lane, which I constantly see being violated as far as other travel was in that same lane, 12 people I'd rather see, make a motion to, approve the westbound setup. And forgo that small little piece on the eastbound.
Okay, so Richard is making a motion to eliminate the eastbound side and the little, the bus only lane between Station and Boylston, is that correct?
Well, the eastbound is on the table as far as eliminating the,
Yes, I just want to make sure the motion captures everything you're trying to say.
got it. Yeah,
That's correct, okay. So we're gonna hold that a second. David Trevette, I see your hand, I'm sorry. You got tired. Go ahead, Mr. Ford.
Thank you. This is just a one.
Sorry, could you come? Oh, sorry, you gotta speak right there.
This is just a point of clarification, but I just want to understand, and I fully acknowledge I haven't looked at this for years now. I do remember when it was first put forward, but my question is your concern about enforcement, that enforcement is just not practical, or are you saying that the practical realities of the road are that the private vehicles just have to be in the bus lane? There's just not enough space. I mean, the reason why I'm asking the question is we now have automated enforcement under Massachusetts law for bus lane violations. So I just wanted to clarify, is your concern, as a practical matter, we could never enforce the bus lane? Because if that's the case, I think we should be thinking about camera enforcement. Or if you're saying, as I said, that the practical reality is just not enough room for all these vehicles, that's something else.
But my civilian belief is that the geometry does not support the lane, there's just not enough room. And now Jonathan, if you want to add anything.
My understanding is that when asked for a hardened right turn lane, the town was turned down by the state. And that in itself makes this impractical.
So there's multiple challenges.
Wait, we
For
know
the
that we
eastbound.
piloted?
For our pilot, we wanted a hardened curved right turn lane. And we were told we could not have that.
By MassDOT Highway. Any additional questions, comments? Yeah, Michael. Sorry.
This is a question about the. My name is Michael Rubenstein. I live in precinct 13. I'm a member of the select board. This is a question about the analysis. I know at one point there was a discussion about the right turn lane coming eastbound that is to the west of the Washington Street, Boylston Street intersection that was causing problems. This was the lane that was not marked clearly, and a lot of people found it confusing. And I'm wondering whether the markings on that lane over the course of the pilot, were they ever changed? I know that came up.
Dan can jump in, he knows all the history of this, sure.
That right turn lane as you're approaching High Street and coming down Route 9 eastbound, it was striped originally, and then we had signs saying right turn only, and cars had to get into the left side. A frequent complaint of the public comment that came in is drivers just weren't prepared for that right turn only lane. They were expecting it to continue through. When the state came in and milled and paved the road, there was a few months without pavement markings. So the right turn arrows were removed. The signage was still in place. And then I think it was maybe 3 months ago, the state came in and they installed the right turn arrows, and they actually brought it a little further back, closer to the mid-block crosswalk in front of Old Lincoln School. So they extended the right turn arrows to try and give people more time to know that that lane was changing to right turn lane to get over. I think there was a slight improvement when the arrows were pushed further back. But in general, if you were out there, you still saw a lot of vehicles in the right turn lane, and some of them would cross over the intersection, see the bus lane, and then try and get over. And that's the most complaints we're getting, is the merging feels unsafe to them. There's nowhere for them to get over when there's a queue of cars because no one's letting them into the left turn lane, and they're stuck in the right turn lane.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments, concerns, queries?
Ryan, could I make a comment?
Of course, Rob.
So I bike through that intersection, coming eastbound, from the Station Street to, Route 9 every day when I go back home. And I will say that whenever I am biking through it, having that bus lane there adjacent to me makes me feel so much safer than if there was a car, directly next to me. Whenever a bus is right next to me and I'm between a bus and a car in my bike lane, it definitely feels very narrow, but that does not happen all the time because buses aren't coming all the time. And I will say also, just from my personal experience, whenever I'm pulling up to Harvard Street and there's a 66 that's right there that we're releasing at the same time, that 66 is able to get to the front of that queue in a way that it would not if there was a queue backing up at the intersection. So I think it works for buses, it definitely works for bicyclists. So I would strongly recommend keeping that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I just want to ask a question. Do you know, I'm curious, so east of High Street, the area that you all are recommending that we remove the bus lane, overlaps with, I think, 2 turning lanes. Do you know what percent, how much of that lane has turning lane overlap about? Like, is it like half the length or something or more?
But that right hand lane, you have right hand turn for Brookhouse, you have right hand for Pond, and then eventually, Huntington.
Oh, I see what you're asking. Yeah, I mean, it's when you get between that right turn lane for High Street and the right turn lane for Walnut, the right turn lane for the Riverway, it really is a significant proportion. I don't know what the percentage is, but it is a significant proportion of that lane.
So I just want to make a comment to David's comment, which is that I think it's not just an enforcement issue because anybody can say, oh, I was gonna turn right. Like, at any point, you can kind of justify being in that lane, so it's really difficult. Like, there's a little bit where there's no arrow, but it's not very much. And again, like, the data seems to show that the bus improvement is primarily through this jumping, being able to go to the front of the light coming south on Washington to go east. And so I support keeping that portion of the bus lane, sorry, Richard.
Yeah.
And it seems like we wouldn't lose much of the benefit because that's where the benefit is gained. So, yeah. My thought.
Well, I appreciate that. Okay, so I'm gonna close public comment on this item since we've heard from everybody. We're gonna turn back to the Transportation Board. Richard has made a motion, just want to be clear, to remove the eastbound bus lane from Boylston Street to High Street, from Boylston Street / High Street to the town line. Retain the westbound lane from the town line, River Road to Station Street. And remove the eastbound bus lane from Station Street to Boylston Street / High Street / Route 9. Is there a second to that motion?
Thank you, Mr. Hendricks.
Nancy?
Yeah, I have a question before.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
don't, could you just explain? I didn't understand what your reasoning was as to why you wanted to remove it.
So currently, what's being offered up as a result of the program is the eastbound Route 9 priority bus lane is being offered up as canceling that part of the program. And the only remaining part of the eastbound priority lane is coming out of Brookline Village from Station Street to the traffic light. I'm proposing is for that little stretch, to have a bus priority lane that's 100 feet, say. I don't feel it's necessary, and it's really not gonna be impactful. Where we are maintaining the westbound full infrastructure layout. I think that's where the focus should be, going forward until we revisit the eastbound if it ever comes up again.
Are you clear, Nancy?
Yeah, I don't understand what the harm of it is. So I'm wondering whether.
We don't have to have unanimity, so if no one chooses to second his motion, it dies for lack of a second.
Okay, all right,
And
I'll stop. I'll
to
stop.
another, see if anybody else wants to make a motion. So Richard, I'm gonna just, it seems to me that that motion dies for lack of a second.
No problem.
Thank you.
All right.
Would anyone else like to make a motion with respect to this item?
I shall move, based on the recommendations of eliminating the eastbound Route 9, maintaining the Station Street to the traffic lights at Route 9 eastbound, and maintain the entire westbound bus priority line.
All right, and to be clear, this would be a recommendation from us to the select board, and then it's up to the select board to work with the T to figure it out. Okay, I'll take that motion. Is there a second to that motion? Seconded by Jonathan.
Jonathan? Brian?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yeah.
Richard?
Yes.
And Nancy?
Yes,
Thank you very much. Thank you, Rob. Okay, moving on to our next item, which is stop signs, discussion and action on MassDOT Always Stop Control Engineering Evaluations at St. Paul Street and Dummer Street, Carlton Street and Ivy Street, and LaGrange Street and Princeton Road.
Hey, I can certainly present on this, so we have Dan who kind of oversaw this and certainly jump in at any moment that is needed. But just very quickly, the St. Paul Street and Dummer Street and LaGrange Street and Princeton Road, these both had evaluations that satisfied the MUTCD crash experience warrant and site crash experience warrant. So these met those warrants there in terms of the number of crashes that were there. In terms of the operational analysis that was performed for the intersections. All those things found that those two intersections warranted getting the all-way stop signs. For Carlton Street and Ivy Street, this particular evaluation was based off of engineering judgment and site distance limitations. So it did not meet the MUTC crash experience warrant. But it was felt based on this judgment and of engineers at Jacobs that drivers on Ivy Street have a restricted sight distance due to the walls, fencing, vegetation, and vertical curvature of Carlton Street. It was also noted that this intersection was located within Brookline Vision Zero High Priority Network. And for those reasons, the traffic engineer that we had on staff, Jacobs, they recommend conversion based on the safety conditions that they observed and the expected benefit of more consistent traffic control. Dan, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
That's good. Overall summary of the intersections. The only thing I'd add is part of the MassDOT program here is the equipment for the stop signs would be donated to the town as part of a grant, and then we would install the equipment within 90 days of delivery from MassDOT. And the stop signs will be the LED flashing kind. So drivers will see that this is hopefully alert them to the change, and also have the advanced stop sign ahead warning signs in place as well.
Okay. Thank you. Nancy, I think you had a couple of questions on this one.
yes. I don't know to what extent you considered the impact on northbound traffic on Carlton Street, which there's a tremendous volume of cars, particularly in peak hours, where the traffic already backs up. And if you put a stop sign there so that every single car coming out of Beacon Street, either crossing Beacon or turning right on Beacon turning right on Carlton, if every single car has to stop at that stop sign, you are going to have an unbelievable traffic mess on that street, coupled with the lack of any, sort of serious, as far as I can see, experience of safety concerns. And I'll explain why there isn't a safety issue here. When you come east, you're coming east on Ivy Street from Mason Square, from Coolidge Corner direction. You're coming east and you get to Carlton Street. Cars do not make left turns there. I have never seen a car make a left turn there. It may be that occasionally, once in a blue moon, a car makes a left turn. But it's very infrequent. Almost all cars coming on Ivy, and that traffic is pretty infrequent. It's not heavy traffic. They turn right. And my understanding is that the vision requirement was like 20 feet off. I mean, it was very close on a right turn lane. It failed the sort of sightline requirement just minimally. Another reason that's not a dangerous intersection is that you can see perfectly well what's going on to the right. You're making a right turn. Your only concern, safety-wise, would be traffic that's coming from the left, coming south on Carlton. Very few cars, very, very, very few cars are coming south on Carlton. Carlton is one way north from Euston to Montfort. So there's only 2 blocks from Euston to Ivy. It's 1 block from Euston to Ivy that a car would be coming south on Carlton Street and be possibly difficult for someone on Ivy to see, although I drive that all the time. I live on Carlton between Beacon and Ivy, and I take that turn on Ivy multiple times a week. I've never had a problem, ever, ever, ever. I've never heard of anyone who had a problem making that turn. There's almost no cars coming south on Carlton. The only ones, there's almost no traffic on Euston, very little traffic coming from the north on Euston. The only cars that come south on Carlton are coming from Euston. They're coming westward on Euston, and they take a left turn on Carlton, and they go that 1 block from Euston to Carlton. Very few cars, and I've never had a problem seeing them. So as far as I'm concerned, there's very, very little to none safety issues as a practical matter. And yet the downside is you're going to have horrendous impacts on Carlton. As it is, there are days I can't get out of my driveway because the traffic has backed up past my house close to Beacon Street. That's going to happen with great frequency, especially during peak hours. So it seems to me it's a solution without a problem. So I'm very much opposed to it.
Thank you, Nancy. Anyone else on the board have any comments, questions?
Was bicycle traffic part of the consideration for the need for the 4-way stop? Because I know it's a shallow bike lane that will be coming from Ivy.
Did do a traffic count. I don't see the bike volume in there, but in the accident data, there were 2 accidents that did involve a cyclist.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there were 6, this is the intersection with 6 crashes. Right? I have that right?
And what was the nature of the crashes? I know cars were crashing into a house, or not the house, but a fence. I don't know what kind of crashes were these?
I think it's another way to ask the question is, were they attributed to not having a stop sign there? Were they,
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't think the data that MassDOT provides gives too much detail. It just says one involved in injury, one did not. And one was found no improper driving, and the other was a failure to yield. But it doesn't say who failed to yield either. So
Well, you're saying that the issue is traffic that's coming east on Ivy. Bikes are going west on Ivy. Well, they come, sometimes they come from both the east. The bike lane is the westbound, right. Yeah, there's a few bikes that come through eastbound there.
Okay, any other questions from? Go ahead, please.
So Nancy mentioned, so Dan, you said you did car counts. So Nancy's concern about, delays and how backed up it's gonna get. Is that sort of what you determined also in your analysis?
state analysis did show a level of service of a B, and I think the existing is an A because you don't have to stop. So they're showing a 10-second delay. And then it looks like with the stop sign analysis, they weren't able to give us a queue length. So we don't know how far that will get. But they're saying a 10-second wait on average for cars to get through there during the peak hour, as opposed to now there's no wait.
So accident data that I have from 21 to 25 over a 4-year period, averages about 2 accidents per year between Ivy and Houston. I guess Nancy's making a good point as far as, you know, we trying to identify the need, whether do we need that here, is that consultants basically have told us.
I think it was engineering judgment as, you know, based off of, the factors that we mentioned.
but I could say a couple of them are side swipes, so it's really more like 1 a year.
Okay,
Stop signs, yeah.
public comments from anyone, questions? Michael, you gotta talk to the microphone. And then, Dylan, just keep an eye on who's online for me, please. Thank you.
Yeah, Michael Rubenstein, precinct 13, a member of the select board. I just want to point out that, I believe the analysis was done assuming that there's not a crosswalk at the south side of that intersection. But I believe the transportation board just approved adding crosswalk to the south side, which is presumably going to increase pedestrian traffic. And it sounded like from your explanation that one of the blind spots coming out of Ivy was to the right, so that somebody starting to walk through that crosswalk would effectively be in the blind spot of that of somebody coming out of that. Is my understanding of that correct? This is the location of the blind spot that you referenced earlier.
Yeah, corner where the mailboxes are.
I understand if I know it's southeast west, but somebody coming.
I mean, just by the fact that there are blind spots and that there are gonna be crosswalks at all 4 corners of it, wherever that blind spot is, could be a safety issue for pedestrians crossing. But I think, yes, what you're talking about is an issue.
Okay.
Sorry, Nancy, let me hear it from Jonathan and then we'll come back to you.
So I'm a little struck by the fact that of the 3 roadways, the percentage of non-fatal injury seems to be higher on Carlton Street and Ivy Street. Do we have a speed study for the roadway as well?
no, we don't have a speed study as part of this project.
Okay, because I'm wondering if the issue isn't necessarily needing a stop sign there, but people driving slower through that same intersection. And while a stop sign would do that, stop signs aren't really meant to be traffic calming measures.
We can't use them for speed control. I would mention that the sightline analysis for a crosswalk and then for a turning vehicle are 2 different measurements. So just because one is hard for a vehicle doesn't mean the crosswalk could be deficient.
So Nancy, why don't you go ahead and then we'll hear from Marissa vote.
There's no problem with pedestrians. Because again, if you're talking about coming from Ivy and crossing Carlton, there's no traffic coming from the left. It's if you look to the left, that's the only potential semi-blind spot, but it's not really. You can see perfectly well. To the extent that it's a blind spot, there are no cars coming south on Carlton Street. There's only 2 blocks. They necessarily are going slow because they would have had to come on from Euston. They can't come from, from Com Ave. You can't come, it's one way the other way. It's one way north. There are not cars that are posing risks to pedestrians on that Ivy Street crossing.
Thank you, Nancy. Go ahead, Marissa.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Marissa Vogt. I'm a town meeting member in Precinct 6, and I semi-regularly actually bike up to Boston University, and my way home takes me on the nice contraflow bike lane on Ivy Street going west. And then I take a left going south down Carlton, and that is actually one of the places where I feel the least safe on that route. There's a real visibility issue if you're in that contraflow westbound bike lane on Ivy, trying to turn south onto Carlton. It's really hard to see the traffic coming north. I know there's very little going south, but it's really hard to see what's coming north. That position is also on a very slight uphill for bikes. So it's just even harder for bikes to kind of to get that starting and then to react if there is traffic coming. I'm really delighted to hear the proposal to put stop signs there. It would make me feel a lot safer. I just think it's really a win-win, and there'd be relatively little, I think, cross traffic. So I think the stop sign would really just kind of help slow the traffic down, and I don't think it would cause a huge backup in the same way that a red light would. So I really ask you to please approve that. Thank you.
Thank you, Marissa. Any additional comments, David Crew? Thank you. David is making his way to the microphone.
I just want to say that a road like Ivy, which is very lightly traveled by motor vehicles, is the exact type of road that we want bicyclists to be using. And in fact, it is one of the most heavily used bicycle routes in Brookline. One reason for that, it avoids riding eastbound on Beacon Street. And so I share Marissa's experience. I'm constantly going through there. That is how I would go downtown. I would take it up to the end. I'd follow Ivy to the end. And once you're in Boston, there's a parking protected bike lane. And at that point, you were home free into downtown Boston. In the same way, it's people from the LMA are coming up Carlton and turning left at Ivy. I'm pretty certain that this is one of the highest bike count streets in Boston. And I would just echo Marissa's point. I mean, I think the problem for me when I'm there is just the cars are going really fast. And you think you see them, and then it turns out you didn't, which, if you react quickly enough, there's no problem. But I just say, I think it's really important to think of it not from the experience of a motorist, and I agree there are not many motorists on that road, but from the experience of a bicyclist, that crossing at Carlton is very high stress.
Thank you, David. Any additional comments? Anyone have their hand up online that I can't see, Dylan? Nancy, sorry, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm sorry to keep pushing this, but if I understood Marissa's comment, she's talking about going westbound on Ivy and turning south on Carlton. All right, that is not where the vision problem identified by your engineers was. I did not see anything in the report that suggested there are sightline issues for anyone going, who's turning left off of Ivy Street coming westbound. There's perfect visibility there. It's not, the problem is the traffic comes in cycles. And anyone who knows that area knows all you do is you wait for the cycle. You know, like cars come through and then there's nothing. And any of us who use those streets, you wait till the traffic's gone. But that's not the problem that was identified by your engineers. The engineers only identified, as far as I can see, maybe I missed something, is that for people who are coming eastbound on Ivy, not westbound. That did not have sightline issues
Okay,
as
thank you.
measured by the engineers.
So let me see if I can try to move us forward. It doesn't sound like there's much concern or debate about St. Paul and Dummer or LaGrange and Princeton. Does anyone have any questions on those two intersections?
I do want to break.
Go ahead.
So, the accident count has gone up. We put in a rectangular flashing beacon at the Princeton, so that might be more due to the fact that more traffic is coming through South Brookline. And therefore the accidents are up. In placing these stop signs, which in favor of, and that we're losing the rectangular flashing beacon, is there additional signs like stop sign ahead that we could plan? Because when you're coming across the West Roxbury town line there, Newton, it's kind of downhill and it's a little bit of a bend before you have a clear view of the intersection at Princeton and LaGrange. Looking to see if we can add, that's one thing that comes to mind. Anything else that you may suggest, but some advance notice is the stop sign up ahead. Just one thing I thought of.
I can answer that one, Brian. This is the graphic that shows the stop signs and then the advanced warning signs. So this is the proposal for the area. If the always stops put in at Princeton LaGrange, and it's similar for the other intersections as well. This is the signage they'd be using.
Yeah.
And the stop signs do have the LED solar powered blinking too, so that should catch driver's eye.
Yeah, it's like coming from the bottom left, Horace James Circles up ahead. At the top of the end. So it's coming from the Boston line or the Newton line, I'm not sure which one it is.
Well, looks like there's a lot of warning signs is what you're asking for, right? And that's gotta be good enough, right? I hope. Want some more
Okay,
signs?
No, I'm just trying to see it on my screen here.
No sign clutter, please.
So,
I think we're good.
yeah,
You're good?
I'm
Okay,
good.
so I just wanna try to move us forward. So I wanna take a vote on LaGrange and Princeton and St. Paul and Dummer. And then we'll do Carlton Ivy separately. So is there a motion to approve the stop signs as recommended at St. Paul and Dummer and LaGrange and Princeton?
So moved.
Second.
I'll take that as a motion from Richard and a second from Jonathan. Dylan, do your thing.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yeah,
Richard,
Yes.
and Nancy.
Nancy's on the phone. You're a yes. We're not doing, this is Princeton and LaGrange and St. Paul and Dummer.
I have to get off. I'm sorry, you want me to
We're
vote
voting
on those?
We're voting on St. Paul and Dummer
Yes.
and LaGrange. And
Yes.
Princeton. Okay. So
Sorry.
now no, sorry, no worries. We're gonna turn to Carlton and Ivy Street. I am going to actually oppose this one because it doesn't meet the warrants. And traditionally, I've always tried to rely on the MUTCD. I understand you can use engineers' discretion, that's sort of a catch-all, and I've never really supported those, so that's the reason I'm just gonna not support this one at this time. So that's where I'm at, but anybody can make a motion and we can go from there.
I'm in the same place. I'd actually prefer that we look at traffic calming on that roadway at some point. So,
I guess I'll just make a comment.
Yeah.
I think I'm on the fence with this, in part because of what you said, Brian, but I'm also struck with what David said about the alternative routes and the fact that we had somebody show up here I think at our last meeting, asking us to, instead of doing bike lanes on Harvard Street, to look for an alternative on Center Street, I think, and we actually did ask the staff to go evaluate that. So this idea that we are kind of at this one hand sort of pushing and saying, let's evaluate moving bikes or whoever onto side streets And this is a parallel kind of immediate side street, and then, but then also having the situation where it becomes hard to get across because, as Nancy said, it's a very busy road. So that just feels a bit contradictory to me.
And I agree with you in that sense, Wendy, but David also said cars are going really fast.
What's that?
Some cars are going fast and we can't control speeds with stop signs. But there are other things that our engineering department could do
But it's not controlling speeds, it's
to
getting
do that
away.
at a later date.
I think we need action on the street, but not this action. This is what I'm suggesting.
And to Nancy's point, the cars do come in platoons. So, yeah, you're gonna have that first car stop at the all-way stop, but after that, all those cars can just go right through afterwards by law.
Okay, so it looks like this is not gonna get 4 votes, so it's probably not gonna pass. So unless anybody has anything else to say, I'm gonna move us forward. Nancy, do you wanna say something?
Nope.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna move us on to the next agenda item. Which is. What is the next agenda? item? Oh, there it is. Next steps for Chestnut Hill Ave and Harvard Street.
This will be hopefully pretty quick. It's just a process update. on-
Famous last words.
But hopefully not my last part. So, yeah, just an update on where things stand in terms of what the board asked us to do in terms of Harvard Street and Chestnut Hill Avenue, in terms of the analysis that we were asked to do. So one at a time there for Harvard Street. We are working with the Bicycle Advisory Committee to work with them to get their recommendations on where they would like to see protected bike lanes as well as any other changes along the corridor. I did some thinking about where protected bike lanes could work along the corridor, just from corridor width, roadway width more than anything else, and not caring a lick about parking, just as a thought exercise more than anything else. And that was kind of a starting point for their discussion. I shared that with them at the last BAC meeting, and they are taking that back. And at the next BAC meeting, they're going to share with me what their recommendations are. I will put those into the plans, so that we have something that people can look at. That is what we can take to the board, and share with the other committees that are interested, like the walk pedestrian advisory committee. I also shared that plan with them. They are formulating their comments, and when the shared mobility committee meets, we will also share the plans with them as well. So we're collecting all that feedback such that when we meet, whether it be in September or whatever that is, that will be the forum for all those committees to provide their feedback on what they would like to recommend to the board to move forward with. And then Chestnut Hill Avenue, the board directed us to analyze 3 scenarios, and we have directed our design consultant Apex to draw up role plans that reflect those 3 scenarios. And we haven't received those yet, but as soon as we do, certainly staff will work with Apex, and we will bring those role plans to the board to discuss.
Thank you very much, Rob.
Anything on Ron?
Please.
So regarding to Harvard Street, I've seen some preliminary drawings of what the bicycle advisory had put some suggestions out there, and after last week, they're not strong enough. So I just want to emphasize the fact of what just took place last week, that we really look at the parking protected up and down Harvard Street, regardless of bicycle advisory or anybody else. Just the way the bike lanes are set up there is just how Louisa lost her life. And I think we need to take that to heart. appreciate, a strong look at that and really kind of. That's all, thank you.
Thank you, Richard. And I just wanted to say that the reason we're doing this, at least the reason I'm doing this, I don't want to speak for all of us. The reason I'm doing this is to make roads safer for everybody. This is not a bike project, it's not a pedestrian project, it's not a car project, it's a safety project. These are safety projects. That's why we're looking to narrow the roads. And if we can narrow the roads and also add additional amenities and make things safer for other roadway users, then it's a two-way win as far as I'm concerned. So there's been a lot of discussion from a lot of people in the press, or not even the press, the self-appointed press, that are claiming all kinds of stuff that's just wrong. We're doing this to make roads safer for everybody. And that's why I'm here doing this. There's a lot of other things I'd rather be doing right now on a Wednesday night at 9 o'clock, but we're here trying to make the streets safer for everybody. And that's why we're doing it. So thank you for the update, Rob. Any questions for Rob? Nope. Okay. We're gonna move on to discussion of a fourth advisory committee. I believe is next. Okay. So I mentioned I was approached by members of the public to appoint an additional advisory committee more focused on automobile users. I absolutely reject the premise that car drivers are somehow victims. That is preposterous, frankly, in the 21st century in the United States. Oh, I just utterly reject that. But I do think there is room for getting additional voices into the meeting. So based on that, I asked Wendy to come up with something about the new, what we might give this committee's charge to be. I don't know if you want to talk about what you wrote, or I could talk about what you wrote. Okay, I'll talk about what Wendy wrote. No pressure. No pressure at all.
No, it's okay with you.
Why don't you start and I'll jump in.
Okay. So, I guess I'll say, well, a few things. First, I mean, I didn't really have a whole lot of background on this, the origin of this, I guess what Brian just said. So I sort of took a stab at this based on, what I think the role of the advisory committees is, and looking at the mission statements of all the other advisory committees. And so for me, there was sort of two things that stood out. One was that they all really emphasized safety and accessibility, mostly safety. So having safety for the group that they were representing. And the second thing was that they tended to be groups that have not been front of mind when roads are designed, right? So I took it as these were, roads have been traditionally designed for thinking about cars and moving cars, and sort of efficiency around cars, and that there's been a push to make sure that other road users are being taken into account. So from that standpoint, I really took this as a charge to think about how do we take the perspective of drivers into account in terms of making roads safer, because I think that that's been the charge, or that's been the focus of the other committees. So that's one thing I'll say. The other thing is that, Nancy reminded me that Brian, when he brought this up last time, used the language of car dependency, that the request was not to have a committee that represents car drivers, but is actually representing car dependent people. And so I guess we need to sort of talk about what that means, but to me, the difference between sort of car dependency and choosing to drive, in any given situation, has to do with sort of access, going back to the accessible parking, situations, people that really, really need to drive and making sure that there's space for them and that their perspectives are being taken into account in terms of do they have the accessible spaces that they need? Are they able to access the roadway, because they can't move, around in any other way? And so, so that brings both safety and accessibility to their role. So that's really what I focused on, and or maybe didn't focus on the accessibility quite as much until Nancy made her comments to me separately. So I think that there's work to be done to bring that perspective in, but that's kind of the context, I guess, for my suggestion that I shared with the board.
So I'm gonna read it, if that's
Okay.
okay?
Yeah.
So the draft mission statement is, the committee's mission is to advise and advocate for safety first, design practices that ensure that all users of the public way have safe, convenient, and dignified ways to move throughout town, with an emphasis on automobile driver-focused traffic calming measures that encourage and promote safe driving practices. The committee is committed to: 1, recommending evidence-based improvements for roadway designs that reduce automobile-involved crashes, injuries, and fatalities on town roads, with particular attention to locations and conditions that enable driving practices that put vulnerable users, particularly pedestrians, cyclists, older adults, children, and people with disabilities at greatest risk. And 2, aiding the transportation board in bringing Brookline's roadway environment into alignment and compliance with relevant town policies, guidelines, and resolutions, including but not limited to Vision Zero Action Plan, Complete Streets Policy, Climate Action Plan, and Sustainable Transportation Warrants Article 31. Thank you for writing that. That wasn't easy. And I was doing that. Hard to pull all these in. So I guess there's 2 questions I just wanted the board to sort of noodle on a little bit, which is, do we need a 4th committee? And if so, is this sort of the right charge for it? I think this is admirable, and if we want to add some additional stuff around folks with disabilities and bringing more stuff in, we can do that. We can also talk about who we might want to populate this 4th advisory committee. But that's sort of where this is at. So I did commit to the select board chair that we would discuss it, and we're doing that now. We're not committed to naming it or creating it, but I do think it's worth seeing if we need it. And I guess we also should discuss the 3 other advisory committees in this context. It has been brought up that we might not need those 3 committees anymore either, that maybe we need 1 committee that has expertise of all 3 modes and also some other things. So there's a lot to discuss, and I just thought this was a good time to talk about it, given that it's the first meeting of the fiscal year. So
Where are we starting?
at the beginning. So do we need a 4th committee? If so, is this the right charge? Nancy, I see your hand.
Yeah, I don't, it strikes me that if there's going to be a 4th committee, they should not be charged with creating the balance between different users. I mean, that's not the point. I mean, you're not asking the Bicycle Advisory Committee to try for balance. They're considering what is unique and special, and for them, their particular concerns that they want to make sure that the board is adequately advised about. They're not charged with, we hope they'll consider, but that's not their charge, is to consider the convenience of drivers. So if you're going to have another committee, it's got to be one that at least looks to raise perspectives that often don't get raised until we get to a meeting and there's a proposal. And we find out, and it's usually through abutters who raise the issues that I think have not been raised by the other committees. And it's a question of, on each particular proposal, what are the implications of removing parking? All right, I don't see this, I mean, Brian's right. I mean, I don't see this really as car drivers as victims. But there are other interests at stake. It's not just, I'm worried about being injured while I'm driving my automobile. I mean, the particular problems of drivers, and particularly those who don't have alternative means of transportation, is that they need adequate parking. Particularly in business areas and near medical facilities. All right, this is extremely important, and it's not just those who have a handicap placard. It's anyone who, has physical limitations or other reasons. There are many reasons why people need to be in cars, that we want those kinds of perspectives. So, I mean, I think parking is one. I mean, if you have situations where, like, think about Gateway East and the frustration that people who drove eastbound felt. It was a combination of delay, but it was also psychological. If you're sitting there and you can't get into that, you can't get from the right bus lane back into the left, or you see people constantly, in the right turn lane who shouldn't be there. There's a lot of frustration that builds up, and these are legitimate concerns. And if we're going to have a fourth committee, it ought to be charged, with taking into account the needs of people who are driving cars, particularly those who don't have alternative means, and making sure that those viewpoints are considered in a systematic way, and not just relying on abutters to explain what the implications are of taking away a left turn or a right turn lane. You heard, for example, when we talked about removing the U-turn lane going, you're going eastbound on Beacon Street, and the people from Cottage Farm who needed that U-turn, but in order to get into the Cottage Farm area. You rely on abutters, and it usually doesn't come up till the meeting. So if we're going to have one, I think it needs to be, we just want to hear the perspective. What are the implications when you look at a proposal? What are the implications of removing parking? What are the implications? And maybe we need additional efficient parking, whatever. But if it's going to be, if the charge is do what's best for everyone, well, that should be everybody's charge. That should be the bicycle advisory and pedestrians. So if that's going to be the charge, it seems to me is not worth doing.
Thank you. Any additional comments?
I have some words,
Yeah, I just think that, the roadways and everything, as we know, since the fifties and everything, it's been designed around the vehicles and everything. And we're trying to strike a balance. And I think the implication of the amount of car accidents that take place every year, 85% of those accidents are car on top or car up. All right, so, to be more concerned about driver behavior is really top of the list as far as what I think this committee will be tasked with, and it's, everyone knows there's a need for cameras and speed controls and everything. And this is what we really need, the attention that we would get from car dependent committee, if we move this forward. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I would actually like to hear from David Trevette. It was about 8 years ago, we created the pedestrian advisory committee, and at that time we said, we're not sure if we really need this committee, but we're gonna give it a shot. So I would like to hear what David has to say.
David, we always love to hear from you, sir. Go ahead, please.
Well, first of all, David Trevette, Chair of the Pedestrian Advisory Committee, speaking for myself, but informed by 8 years of leading the committee. First of all, I agree with Nancy. That is to say, if something is going to be that the emphasis on safety is going to be in the charge for a new committee, then yeah, it should absolutely be in every single advisory committee. Totally. And in fact, I'm one of those people who thinks that the DPW statement that the protection of the pavements is the top priority and that the other policies are secondary is wrong, I think. And I'm, going back to something that Brian said earlier in tonight's meeting, that safety is the top priority. Safety for all users of the public way should be DPW's transportation top priority. And that has all sorts of follow implications. And I think that should fall into all sorts of different, whether it's the charges to the committee, the actions of the committees, the advisory committees, it absolutely should be part and parcel of everything we do. So I will agree with Brian's comment that I often encounter what I have said, and this applies to housing, it applies to a public way, it applies to a lot of things in this town. People do not like to give up what they have been accustomed to having. You take something away, they rebel against it. There will always be pushback. And I would rather have people change. I would rather have something we can do to change the way that people think about this. If we think what we're trying to do is make our town a better town. We ask people to give up their dollars in taxes to support the work of the town in making the town better. I would like people to think that sometimes giving up something that they have enjoyed, whether it be a parking place or a faster trip through town, as part of investing in the future of our town. And if we can get everyone to focus on that kind of long-term vision, trying to improve everything, I honestly think that that's where we can gain some benefit. This notion that we can work together. I'm not a fan of combining the existing 3 advisory committees because I think we do have somewhat different perspectives, and it gives people, whether it's pedestrians or, bicycle riders, use the other shared mobility, transit users, a place to go where they know that their particular concerns will be heard and they will be passed on. But I do think we can do a lot more in terms of working together across these different committees. And I would hope that we find ways to do that. So the fact that we just had a joint meeting of the Pedestrian Advisory Committee and the Commission on Disability to talk with things that are of common interest, in this particular case, sidewalk problems caused by tree roots. I think we should do a lot more of that. So I support separate committees. I think there should be a lot more coordination and working together and advising this board from a variety of perspectives, hopefully a lot of things that can be worked out before it has to come from this board's action. So that's my comment for this evening.
Thank you, David. He didn't disappoint.
He never does.
I have a couple of comments.
Go ahead, Chris.
First of all, did we lose Nancy?
No.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess one thing I want to comment about, so Nancy made the point about us getting the most insight from abutters, and I think that's true, and that's why we notify abutters and abutters show up. Having a committee is not going to give us insight from abutters because obviously they're not going to always have an abutter on the committee. So I don't think that really addresses that. I think one of my concerns about a committee focus on the things that Nancy mentioned, like the parking, like the U-turns and that sort of thing, the sort of convenience of driving, is that we spend a lot of money looking into those things. So right now we have in front of us every meeting, study after study or consultant after consultant who's given a lot of money to tell us about the parking impacts of something, or how long, the delay will be for drivers, how long the queue will be. So we just had a conversation about the corner right next to where Nancy lives that basically told us about sight lines for drivers and that there was a study of car counts for drivers, and that's it. I think there was no mention of sight lines, for bikers, counts for bikers, counts for pedestrians, but correct me if I'm wrong about that, please. So I just think we already spend a lot of money on this and we don't spend that money, we don't take the other users into account in most of the things that we contract and studies that we do when we're considering changes to the road. So so it just seems like unbelievably redundant to me if that's the focus of the committee. And in fact, we already have professionals doing that. If we're gonna rely on the committee to do that, we can save that money, or we should change the sort of ask in those studies to make sure that it's more holistic and everything is being taken into account. So I just see it being very redundant if that's the goal. Now, to David's point about safety and agreeing with the safety, yes, maybe it shouldn't be the charge of a driver dependent committee to consider the safety of everybody, but I do think it should be the safety of drivers and driving, to Victor's point about, crashes being mostly between drivers.
So I kind of see the opposite way as far as the safety portion goes. Just looking over the mission statements for the other committees, perhaps it's time to rewrite those mission statements as well.
Yes.
So that safety is the emphasis. It says an emphasis on safety, kind of tacked on at the end, like, oops, so we forgot about safety. Let's throw it on at the end. That really should be at the forefront of them, and perhaps we should rewrite them the way you so nobly have, where safety is the first word and actually the second word as well in it, to push that to the forefront and not be tacked on at the end.
I agree. Yeah. Oh, okay, go ahead, please. Sorry, you gotta use the microphone. And then we'll do additional public comments.
Hello, my name is David Markey. I would like to speak in opposition to the formation of this committee. I do sincerely believe that, as Brian and Nancy, and Wendy mentioned, this committee does feel extremely redundant to me. I think the Department of Public Works and this committee do a lot of work in considering the needs of automobile drivers. And I mean, I can speak for myself, I'm a cyclist, but I'm also a driver, and I'm very aware at all times when I'm driving about the inconveniences that are present in my driving experiences. And as much as I would love these things to be fixed, I don't think that there really needs to be a committee for this, especially given that, like everyone was saying, safety should be a priority for all the committees. I think the primary difference in between road users that are not drivers and road users that are drivers is that drivers are the people with power to kill in this particular scenario. Every cyclist and pedestrian and disabled pedestrian is at risk of death. And of course, those are safety-minded committees because they're thinking of their own safety. Whereas the automobile committee, you're concerned about parking and being able to access storefronts. And I do, of course, feel for like disabled people who need to have accessible parking. But I do question why this wouldn't be better handled by the existing committee on disability. So fundamentally, I don't think that this committee would really be a motion for progress. It would probably just start to reinforce a lot of the car-centric ideals that have been present in our society for the past 50, 60, 80 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? David, then Michael, will just go over.
I think as others have mentioned, the United States is such a car-centric society, that as a practical matter, most people, at least the majority of people who can afford a car, own a car, even if they prefer to get around another way. And I think the reason why we have these three committees is they bring a perspective that many people in our town don't have. But I feel very confident that the people on the Bike Advisory Committee, on the Shared Mobility Committee, and Pedestrian Advisory Committee understand what it's like to get around Boston by car. They understand what it's like to try to find a parking space. It's not that they're not aware of those things, it's just that they have an acute understanding of what the cost is to other users from the prioritization of a car. So I can assure you, I'm as frustrated when I'm driving my car in Boston as people who come to these hearings as abutters. It's just that I feel the car is just this downward cycle where the more dependent you become on it, the more frustrating it becomes to use it. And I think therefore these three committees that we have, they are adding something unique. I don't really see how car committee is really adding something unique that we don't have already just in the public and also on the boards themselves. The other concern I have is simply the way this committee is being proposed. It almost sounds like it's suggesting things that just aren't true. Like, we don't call the bike advisory committee the bicycle dependent committee or the public transportation dependent committee. But let's be honest, there are people in Boston who can't afford a car and they are on the bus and they are dependent on the bus. And we shouldn't be implying that somehow the car dependency is more important than the public transportation dependency or the bicycle dependency. So I'm a little concerned about like how it's being presented. Personally, I have no problem really with if a group of people really do want to get together and talk about these issues. I mean, as long as it's not elevating, I don't want the committee's existence to elevate ideas that to some extent I feel the town has already rejected. In other words, we do want mode shift. And I know from talking to some of the abutters who are now proposing this, they don't see mode shift as a priority. You know, if you look at the town's rules on committees and boards, one of the requirements is you have to agree with the town policies. Well, I should like, you don't have to agree with the town policies, but the town guidelines for boards and committees say you can agree or disagree, but you have to advance the policies the town has set forth. You have to support the principles of Vision Zero. You have to support the principles of complete streets. And I'm a little concerned that some of the rhetoric behind the suggestion for the committee seems inconsistent with those policies. But, you know, with all this out said and out in the open, I guess they don't object to it. But I just think all these things need to be thought about as you establish the committee.
Thank you. Thanks, David. Michael, and then you now.
Michael Rubenstein, precinct 13, and a member of the select board. I take Jonathan's comment about thinking about the charges of all of the committees in this context, and I appreciate that comment. And one reason that I want to highlight in particular that I appreciate that comment is that all of the charges as they exist, and I believe the writing that you propose for the charge of this new committee, all include the concept of advocate. And I want to raise the question of whether, in terms of the function of a committee, whether including advocacy as part of their role is in conflict with this other notion of, you know, considering other modes or working in concert with other perspectives. If you want to reconsider the charges of those committees, that you might consider the charges of those committees in a more focused way on the priorities that are established by this board, and understanding the perspectives from that are provided by those various committees on those particular issues, which would be less of an advocacy role and more of an advisory role. I would propose, based on the work of many other advisory committees in many other contexts, that when you provide direction for the advice that you are seeking, that you will get more efficient time spent by those committees, and the advocacy concerns that are present on the issues that you raise will naturally occur through other meetings, whether it is at butters or public, other civic groups that are organizing those advocacy on those issues, but to mix advocacy into those committees themselves may not best serve your needs as a transportation.
I think that's fair, and it's true that, you know, every one of our advisory committees right now needs to advance. And at the time that they were created, there was not a complete streets plan, and our complete streets policy and efficient zero policy, and all of these other pieces that we have now. We have those things now that are in place of advocacy. Advancing those is almost tantamount to the same as advocacy. So,
Let's hear from.
Can you, I'm gonna start with a question. Can you clarify for members of the public, what are the 3 existing advocacy? Is bicycle?
there are 3 that are part of, that we have created as part of the transportation board. The Shared Mobility Advisory Committee, the Bicycle Advisory Committee, and the Pedestrian Advisory Committee. I do not know.
Bicycle, pedestrian.
Shared mobility.
The Commission on Disability is not our committee.
And shared mobility.
It used to be the
MBTA.
transit, I forget the original name, but we changed.
Public
it.
Transportation Advisory.
That's what it was, TTAC, yes, which
So-
changed to shared mobility.
In essence, public transit.
More or less.
Yes, okay, so, you know. Hi, my name's Alex Morgan, a Brookline resident. So the case of disabled people is being used as, to kind of prop up this our centric, viewpoint, which is, I think, a little misleading. I mean, I think if there is another committee formed, I think it should be specifically, by for, advocacy for this disabled, to just kind of widen that and say car dependent. I mean, I think in this country, a lot of people believe that they are car dependent because transportation infrastructure for any other modality sucks in this country, frankly. Yeah, I would say I need a car to go to the grocery store, I need a car to go to work. I mean, because there are not safe places to bicycle, public transit routes. And so plenty of people are going to say, I'm car dependent. Now, I think if we focus on specifically in the 4th committee on the disabled, we might be surprised by whether they advocate for, car infrastructure or not in any given situation. I mean, that is a valid viewpoint that is disabled, that maybe could be a motivation for a 4th committee. But to say yes, we've hooked ourselves on cars in this country, like a junk.
Thank you.
That's Nancy, does the Commission for Disability ever feel overburdened by having to respond to all of our stuff on a regular basis?
Well, it's hard. First of all, they're not asked to respond. They are not routinely consulted. They only know about many of our issues because they either independently follow our agendas or they rely on me as the liaison. But I have asked many, many times for them to be notified in advance of certain issues so that they can have input, but they're not currently consulted. And they are very concerned, and Jim Lee's letter that he wrote for public comment was in response to my advising him about this issue about the 4th committee. And I was asking him, what are the specific concerns that the disability community has? And his immediate one was parking. I mean, it's a huge issue for the commission members is having access to parking spaces, otherwise they can't get around. If you were, I mean, I would love for them to be routinely consulted about our projects. I think you'd really need to ask Jim Lee and the commission. I mean, they have a pretty full agenda. They consider issues that have nothing to do with transportation. I don't know whether it would be unduly burdensome. I certainly would like to see them consulted more frequently and more routinely on transportation issues that would affect them.
Okay,
Let's take a turn.
thank you. Anyone else online or in the room? Oh, go ahead, Toby.
Toby Stillman, Vice Chair of the Bike Advisory Committee, but speaking based on my personal experience alone. I've just noticed that it's been suggested that some of these other committees don't take compromise into account. And as someone who's drawn up road cross sections that include parking where there doesn't necessarily need to be parking, and making memos and everything else with political considerations in mind. I think there is an established tradition of the other committees taking the needs of motorists into account. That said, I do think that the missions of these committees could more explicitly reflect the need to consider compromises in their missions. But I'm worried that if a car exclusive committee were to be created, that would make compromise a bit more difficult, and that it would lead to town staff having one additional committee to take formal recommendations from, which in some cases, like if there's a situation where DPW determines that recommendations made by a car committee were not consistent with town policy, that would make essentially having the town decide to go against the car committee would make them look weaker than if they didn't have to go against a car committee at all. And I'm also worried about any potential recommendations that a car committee would make would almost certainly defy the data. The data on car usage shows that infrastructure created for cars, such as parking in lanes, induces demand. It doesn't solve traffic. It just leads to more congestion. And any potential planning that the car committee would do on its own would weaken the other committees, and I think complicate the public process more than it needs to be. Thank you.
Next Toby. Anyone else online or
David Butcher.
okay, go ahead, please. David Butcher, go ahead, please.
Hey, can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. I'm gonna be a bit contrarian here. I actually think that it would be a good idea to have this advisory board. As crazy as that feels saying. In a way, I think it does balance out the power. I do think that it's unfair to say that a car advisory committee would not see the facts any more in a real way than, let's say, the bike committee would or someone else. I think it actually diminishes the power of the other advisory committees if they don't believe that another user can also be able to advise. But I also think that it's telling that there's no one here at this meeting, as far as I can tell, that brought this up and or is volunteering to be on this committee. And I'd be interested to see if this committee that would be created would provide as much advice as these other committees. I've seen how much effort these other, already established committees put in, and I just wonder, relative to how much advice we get from, let's say, the engineers on all these projects, as I think one of the other board members brought up. And I think it might be telling if we see, that discrepancy in effort from the different committees. So that's just going to provide a different viewpoint on it. Thank you.
We can't do two. We got to move on here. Anyone else online?
John Zoll.
John Zoll.
Hi, Jonathan Zoll from Bicycle Advisory Committee. Basically, I mean, I'm not going to say anything too surprising. I think whenever we're looking at any sort of street plans in the Bicycle Advisory Committee, we are always considering what is actually going to affect cars as well. Like we are being extremely careful to always know that anything that's going to affect parking or cause traffic is going to be a no-go. That basically anything we advise that will hurt cars' abilities to get places is just not going to be an option. And that's a lot of planning, and everything always considers cars no matter what. And we're trying to, at least the role of the committee, and I believe the other committees, is to advocate for the, for safety, for the perspective that's not necessarily the automatic default in our planning. And I just worry that the committee will be looking at the perspective, well, I'm stuck at this light for a few cycles, or it's just annoying to turn here, or I don't like that if near me there's going to be a loss of a parking space. And I understand that might be a bit reductionist, but there's just a concern of we're making so much progress, and the worry that that basically we'll lose what we can get because there's now another committee that might be saying, well, if we lose one spot here, it's going to cause a really negative impact. So in that case, the whole plan that might be improve safety significantly will be axed.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else online?
Emily Jacobson and Janet Grant.
Okay, can you call them out, Bill?
Emily, go ahead.
Emily, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I have just two questions. One is for the staff and one is for the board. To the staff, if this committee were about as active as the Pedestrian Advisory Committee and the Bicycle Advisory Committee, what do you estimate that your time commitment would be in order to support the committee adequately? And to the board, considering you would have 4 advisory committees and 6 members, do you think that you have enough members to consistently attend or oversee the advisory committees and provide them with feedback? Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Let's hear from Jan, and then we'll try to answer your questions.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to say that I'm actually not in favor of this committee. But were you to decide that you want to have this committee, I would want the word dependent dropped. I'd want to see that you did focus on safety and on disabled car drivers. But further, I'd want to see that the selection for the committee was very careful, so that someone like me, who is actually, I have access to a car. I drive the car once a week. I do not commute to work. I also bike, I also walk, I also take the T a lot. I would want to see that there would be room for people like my profile on this committee, because I think that would be important. So dropping the dependent idea and having it be a car committee under those conditions, I'm not in favor of, but I would be okay with. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. So Emily, I guess to try to answer your questions, I don't think it's possible to know the full commitment right now, but yes, there would be additional burdens placed by the creation of this, as there was when we created SMAC, as there was when we created the BEDAC. So yes, I take your point. Thank you for bringing it up. Anyone else online? Okay, we're gonna close public comments, come back to us. We don't have to make this decision tonight, but I think it's worth talking about it, so. Final thoughts on this one, anybody? Jonathan?
So I've been trying to think about what, other than being reactionary, this committee would be. Like, when the pedestrian advisory group was formed, they spent some time determining what they would produce. They weren't gonna produce a green routes plan like the bicycle advisory committee, that'd be something different. And they figured themselves out there, but I am struggling to see where the focus would go, other than be reactionary to design plans that are produced, which isn't much different than going to a public meeting.
Well, I agree with Jonathan on that. I want to say one quick thing about Jonathan's comment before about safety in all of the statements, and then my final thing is about Mike, comment on Michael Rubenstein's signs. Comment. So in terms of safety, and your, about sort of shouldn't all of the committees sort of have that be central, I completely agree. I also think it's, in a way, it's implicit because the only reason we all aren't just sharing the same road is that it's unsafe, right? Like the whole point of sidewalks versus the bike lanes is because it's unsafe for them to be, for all the other users to be with cars. Not that dangerous for cars to be with the other users, but so yes, it could be stated more clearly, but basically the whole point is that it's unsafe, right? And everything that they do is therefore kind of about safety. But I think Michael's point is really important that, I mean, I don't know where the language about advocacy came from. It predates my time on the board, and it seems like all of the new committees sort of use the template of whatever committees existed because the language is very similar. But I think his point about, sort of changing the charge and all of them helping us think about how we make our decisions to align with what we're here to do and with what the town has tasked us to do is a really important one. And it's also something that I really struggle with the idea of this card committee. Because not that Nancy is necessarily the sole representative here, but the way she's described is, what she sees as being important is actually emphasizing things that giving those things equal kind of standing with some of the things that the other committees focus on is counter to our town policies, right? Like we have this sort of order of vulnerability and we have policy that says that the most vulnerable should be sort of taken into account first and primarily, and there's been prioritizations. And so I worry that, I guess I'm just saying that if we do this card committee, we have to set it up and its charge has to be able to reflect that. It can't just be that, we're taking the input of all of our committees equally and they're just representing whatever the people on them decide is the priority or is most important for those users, right? They need to be informing our decisions, taking into account what our town has put forward as the priority relative to all of them. And so, so if we're gonna do it, we have to make sure that part of it. And I think what Michael said about kind of rethinking all of them in this regard is a really good idea.
Yeah, and I mean, your last sentence in your draft is what struck me when Michael was talking, in that we did not have those when the bicycle advisory was first created. We also didn't have electric bicycles when the bicycle advisory committee was created. Right, so safety can be an emphasis of it just for that very reason that bikes are going faster than they used to. But there's also all of these policies we have that each committee can now feed off. And and build their advisement to us off of. Whereas at the time that the bicycle advisory committee was created, there was nothing.
It's a very different time.
So, I mean, my big takeaway from this discussion tonight is that it might be time to rewrite the mission statements of 3 advisory committees that we have, and then see where we go from there. And perhaps, I mean, and find a way to better integrate the Brookline Commission for Disability into our advisement as well.
Yeah, so I just wrote to Jim Lee and Sarah Kaplan, and I copied you, Nancy, asking Jim how we can do that, and I'm very open to figuring out a way to do that. One idea was that they might create a subcommittee of their group to look at transportation issues.
Wrote down the thing.
But hey, whatever, I'm open to, I do take your point, Nancy, that we need to do more of that, and I completely agree, and we will do more of that. I don't know, Richard, do you have anything you wanted to add before we wrap this up?
I just think a vehicle advisory committee would be better title to kind of describe what we're probably looking at more than a car. And then I think a vehicle, I think, you know, North Brookline has their car issues, but it's the Indy 500 in South Brookline, and the concern of driver behavior and everything among car drivers is alarming. And, you know, I think it needs the attention. I think an advisory committee set up like this, with the right purviews, is, you know, what we're looking, and I think is what is needed up there.
Thank you. Okay, so we're not gonna solve this tonight, but I think we had a very thorough discussion. We will pick this up again in September. We'll move on to new business. Anyone have any new business? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. 9:40.